Welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting of May 13th, 2008. Would you please rise to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those wondering at the state of my glasses, I sat on them this morning and broke them, so I'm not trying to make a fashion statement. At any rate, I do have some announcements. Closed session was held last week pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. Darby versus Snowden et al., Calaveras Superior Court, case number CV31610, resulting in nothing to report. There's an addendum to this day's meeting, agenda item 13A, a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9C, conference with legal counsel, possible initiation of litigation, one case. That's county counsel and potential board action. We'll now move to the consent agenda. These are items that are expected to be routine and non-controversial, can be acted on one time by the board and without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Any items? Board? Staff? Marty?
Number 5, what if we just have a couple questions?
Then you would want to take it off the consent. All right. 5 is removed from the consent calendar. Any others? In that event, I'll hear a motion here.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 3-0-2 vote. Number 5, questions.
Marty?
I just wanted to know what they're going to do it.
Marty Crane, Valley Springs. I just wanted to know what they're going to do at 12 and 26. We've seen a little activity, and we just want to know. We're hoping it's not a stoplight.
It is.
All right.
Do you want me to go ahead and answer that?
Yes, I thought that it might be good to have somebody from
Thank you.
Public Works.
Good morning. My name is Vicki Smith-Becker, and I'm the analyst for Public Works. This cooperative agreement is for the interim signalization of 1226. So right now we are just starting with the beginning design phases, and that's what the agreement with Caltrans is for.
I didn't understand what the sentence was. It's for the what?
The signalization, so they're going to signalize that intersection at 1226.
Okay.
I think we're talking stoplights. Is that right?
Right.
Is this something that Caltrans put on their calendar a long time ago?
This has been a project, from my understanding, that's been around for a long time with the board as well.
It's been years.
It's a priority on the benefit basin as well.
Okay, because we've had a lot of community meetings, and been, thanks to MyValleySprings.com, they've wanted people to educate us on traffic calming devices and all kinds of things. And so far, I haven't heard anyone in favor of a light there for a long time, because the feeling is that it would just stop the traffic instead of keeping it moving, creating more pollution, and it wouldn't fix the problem. So is there any way to relook at that?
Well, we're going to be entering into the design phase of that right now. So this would be the point that they'd be looking at the options of what they're going to do. The long-term plan for this, though, is the signalization. And Caltrans' very long-term plan is to do the bypass out there. So this is actually the interim solution to that.
Are there other options other than a signal light? That's what I'm saying, like things like that.
Not in this particular agreement that we're looking at. what they've selected right now to do is a signalization, so it is light. And I guess to kind of address the pollution issue for you, they look at the intersection and they look at the stopping times, the idling times of the car. With the stop sign that's there right now, the idling times are higher, and the loss of service there is a lot higher than it would be with a signal. And that's...
But it's our understanding that with a roundabout or something of that nature, no one would stop, and it would just be a continual flow. And so I haven't heard anything in favor of a light. And I'm wondering, so does Caltrans now go back and ask the public?
Right.
Does the public get any input on this?
Well, oh yes, there's going to be plenty of stages for input. This is just the design portion of it.
Not do a stoplight, but maybe do something else?
Actually, this project, the design with this is with the county, not with Caltrans, but we have to work with Caltrans.
I'm going to try to regulate this colloquy here, but albeit belatedly. But what I would like to know, I think it's a good question here. Can you describe the points of public input, what the stages of this will be, so that everybody can be aware of where they might weigh in?
Correct. At the beginning stages here, this is the very first thing that we need to do to start design work, is to have a cooperative agreement, because the location of the 1226 lies on the state route, which is Caltrans right-of-way. So in order for us to even begin looking at design or looking at right-of-way or looking at construction, you have to start each stage with a cooperative agreement, allowing us, the county, to go in there to do that. So the next stage of this, after design is complete, the phases of going through design, we will have to go out to bid for a consultant. At that point, it will be brought back to the Board of Supervisors for approval of that contract to do that. So there's going to be multiple, and this is just one section of this. The next section of this would be right away down the line, and then eventually would be construction.
Okay, and the other question seemed to be the signalization appears to be the direction of this.
Correct.
Are there any moments at which alternative designs might be considered, or is this decision already pretty much been made?
To my understanding, looking at previous documents that's been done, the PSNR that was done in 2003, this has been the selected alternate that is the signalization. I'm not going to say that you know, there wouldn't be maybe an opportunity if there was a huge discussion about that, but this is the focus of where this is going, is the signalization of that intersection as an interim project.
I'd point out that this agreement makes Caltrans the lead agency for CEQA purposes, and so the CEQA process will involve some public input.
Yes, as well.
All right.
So there'll be multiple stages for public input.
And I remember now,
Marty, could you come up and address the
remember
board?
now, there are two 12 and 26s. Are you talking about in Middle Valley Springs or in Farmington?
Valley Springs.
Valley Springs.
Okay, so there is a chance that, based on our new community plans, we might know better and do better, right?
I'm not
It's not a
going
done deal yet.
No, it's not a done deal. It's a beginning of a starting an improvement in that intersection. But I do want to make clear that that is the direction that we are going in right now.
It's not trans direction, right?
No, it's
It's been
the
our
county.
priority.
I believe this was initiated by the county to
It
try to
was.
figure out what to do with one of our more dangerous intersections, but also the reason that the funds here are from air pollution sources is because the number of people who were sitting there running their engines for a long time, they figured there needed to be some kind of way to mitigate that. This was the proposal that came up through that process back in 2003, I believe.
Correct.
And this is how far it's gotten, not very far in 5 years, but we're now looking at funding to begin the study process.
Correct.
I should say the planning process. Bill?
Well, I just want to remind anybody that's been paying attention to this, and Marty, you're right in the middle of it down there, so you should know, but since that time, for the past 5 years, there have been, Lord knows how many public meetings and public outcry in this room and in other places, requesting and demanding a signal there. That is the only voice, that's the only voice that we have heard. Now, a couple of years ago, we started the plan and completed the plan to create the Valley Springs Benefit Basin, which would spend money on specific plans in the Valley Springs Basin. And this was made the #1 priority there. And there were public meetings about that, and it was very much in favor. And there were, actually, I don't remember one voice against having a signal there at that time. So, I mean, the idea for alternatives, I imagine, is anything is possible. What this project is going to do is to research the environmental and the planning and estimation of that project. If the project changes, so will the amount of money. So a roundabout's going to take a lot more real estate and property acquisition and so on and so forth. So I'm in agreement here. I don't believe this is absolutely set in concrete where nobody could change the direction of this thing, but it'd be like changing the direction of the Queen Mary. This has been going on for 5 years with not only the approval of all those that have been vocal down there, but under the demand. And of course, it will assist us in the air quality deficit that we have. We are not in compliance in this county. And although everybody knows the signal doesn't reduce traffic, but it does regulate it. So it is a Band-Aid. There's no question about that. It does regulate the traffic. It does reduce the air pollution, but it's certainly not a panacea.
Well, I appreciate all this information, and I just want to say that 5 years ago, we thought our only option was the bypass or the signal, bypass or signal. And then in the last couple of years, we've been diligently trying to educate our community and while we sit in traffic, and about the different calming methods that are being used elsewhere that have nothing to do with the light, and that are better than a light, so we've come to understand. So we didn't know 5 years ago, and so we're learning.
Right, but we've been collecting money for this since the benefit basin's gone in, and so you have to allow this. And my question is financially here. This is going to take approximately 2 years according to this document. And I want to know if these costs are frozen. Like the county's going to contribute $50,000 to the state's $350,000, but 2 years is a long time, and there's sometimes inflationary considerations. So are these bids at this time, and they're going to be good? Or if it does go overrun, will the percentages stay the same, the 13 and 11% that the county's going to pay for these 2 phases? So I'm concerned about our share going in, and is the county pretty sure that we will be able to complete this for our $50,000 contribution?
Well, I just wanted to throw that out there, that we're still very much interested in what's happening in the intersection.
Go get them, Marty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do I hear a motion? Oh, one more comment on number 5.
Zerl McDaniel. I've been attending a lot of the meetings in Valley Springs, the community plan meetings, and it's clearly, from what I gather, the will of the people of Valley Springs and the greater Valley Springs area that they do not want a stoplight. And I agree with Marty that back when these studies were done, the community wasn't involved like it is now. There's been 3, maybe 4 planning meetings this last year, and a few of them were on traffic, and one of the studies that I clearly remember was that a stoplight congests traffic, holds it up longer than the 4-way stop would. And it's really good news to hear about the bypass, because we thought that had fallen off the map. But I would ask that you, before you put county money into even a study right now of this, that we get some more public input on it, have it reopened possibly, because like I know, Bill, what you said, that this was done 5 years ago, but that's before the community was even active and listening. So just ask you to consider that.
Thank you. And now the COG will weigh in.
Well, I hesitated a little bit, but perhaps Tim McSorley with the Calaveras Council of Governments, perhaps I can briefly add a little clarity. Yes, in 2003, there was what's done as a project study report. In that project study report, there were a number of alternatives that were initially studied as being potentially feasible. The signal that is being more strongly considered is the apparent preferred alternative. However, a roundabout was one of those discussed. There is a significant amount of right-of-way that is required for a roundabout. There's no doubt about that. And so what Public Works is about to engage in, with your blessing, is a cooperative agreement to proceed with what's called project approval and environmental documentation. During that time, there will be public hearings and opportunities for public input. And then they will proceed into the PS&E, or Plan Specification and Estimates phase. Those are all funded in part through, and I hate to be the corrector here, but it's actually the RIM program is providing the match for the CMAC, or Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality funding, which actually comes through the council of government. So it's that combination of funding. And at this point in time, yes, that PA&ED and PS&E is estimated to cost $400,000. So, to hit you with all those acronyms, but there's actually been quite a bit of study that's been done, but there's still
So
more
Tim,
to be done.
this environmental work, the CEQA and NEPA
Yes.
portions that are going to be done here, will those hold for any alternative as well? And is there, I mean, are they valid for a certain length of time for that?
They will study a number of alternatives, and typically they do look at, I'll say, the majority of those that are identified in the PSNR. Okay, but again, there will be a design preferred alternative, if you will, but there will also be an environmentally preferred alternative. This project will also be subject to air quality conformity analysis as part of this whole process. So whichever alternative is chosen, there will again kind of a continuing opportunity for input and study and analysis.
Since you've been involved in this project for, I imagine, since before its inception, I'm wondering whether you've taken a look at the roundabout concept. It strikes me that given the businesses that are right there and the amount of area that's required for a roundabout, that we would be talking about demolitions or serious impact on existing businesses.
Yes.
There. Is that correct? And that has some expenses that might go into the cost-benefit analysis?
Yes.
Okay. Well, look forward to seeing how all this pencils out. Thanks. Any other comments on item number 5 before the board takes action? Is there a motion?
Well, one comment that I just wanted to make on this is that it's unfortunate that the analysis will only be able to consider what the traffic currently is, which is abysmally bad on a school morning. But if an alternate pathway could be constructed to relieve the traffic coming in on Highway 26 and turning right and going toward Toyon, I've sort of secretly suggested a pathway across a cow pasture on a gravel road, much like 90% of the roads in our county, could alleviate that for maybe $15,000 or $20,000 instead of $750,000 for a signal. Oh well.
I think your estimate's low.
I could take my tractor out there and doze the gravel bypass in half a day.
You'd be arrested.
But it does sound like a volunteer that
Maybe.
the Public Works Department might want to take into account in their...
Maybe, Bill, I'll do it at night, half a night. So.
That's certainly how we do it in District 2. Let's see if we can get a motion on this.
I'll move this item.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 4-0, 1 absent. We now move to our 9-10 item, public comment. We're asking people to keep their comments to 5 minutes apiece, 15 minutes to a subject. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board under this item?
Good morning. My name's Bonnie Newman. I'm a health care provider in Calaveras County, and I've come to talk to you today about an issue that I've been struggling with for over a year. I I don't really think there's anything you as a board can do about it unless you can change state law or turn time back 30 or 40 years before Reagan changed all the mental health programs. But I noticed today that someone's going to ask that maybe declared Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's kind of timely because that's what I'm talking about today. And I've coined it a black hole in the mental health system. I'm sure there's a lot of black holes, but this is one that has gotten me involved. You know the client that I take care of. He's come before you. He's taken his helmet off and shown you the ravages of a disease, brain cancer. When you have, apparently, brain cancer or a head injury from a motorcycle accident or a car wreck, or as a child you've been dropped and your brain has been injured because of, and I'm not sure what the wording is in Title 9 California Code Regulations, Section 183205B1, but you don't qualify for mental health services under the mental health guidelines of Medi-Cal. That means if you exhibit psychoses, you aren't able to avail yourself of the mental health program because either the degree of recovery is so slim, or I'm not sure what the wording is, but it seems like it's so hopeless that nobody can invest. I mean, the Medi-Cal system cannot invest counseling for a person who has a mental disease, a mental disorder. I'm not sure. I'm afraid to use the terms. You know, I've been called on, you can't call something incurable, but if you don't treat it, how's it ever going to get better? I've never been aware that if you have a brain disorder, if you have an injury, you can't get mental health services. So I'm struggling with my client. The mental health department is bending over backwards to provide services on some level for this gentleman who doesn't qualify under California regulation, blah, blah. But I really don't know where to go and how far to pursue this with anything. I know I can appeal, I can do all kinds of things, but for everyone that has never been aware of it, the mental health system does not cover everybody, even if you're low income and you have no resources. It's a dismaying situation that I'm just, I can't say I'm ready to go postal, but I am at the verge of spitting and foaming at the mouth because I'm so frustrated. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I don't think there's anything anybody can do, including the mental health department, because they are really trying, but this is just a horrible situation, and I see us, on one hand, we're out all over the world telling people how to conduct their lives, and we can't take care of the people we have here at home. The most vulnerable, the most needy are going unserved. Thank you.
Thank you. I would suggest, if possible, that you contact NAMI if you're not already in touch with them. They're a mental health advocacy organization and might have some resources that could be done outside of governmental service that could be of assistance to your client. And you also have two of the leading experts in this right behind you. You might want to check in with Rita and yep. All right, thanks. Other items from the public?
Hello, I'm Al Segallo, and I'm part of a newly formed group called the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. And so I have a couple items from that, and also when we get to the agenda item on the fee schedule, I'd like to have a chance to talk on that as well. First thing I have is a letter from our group, which is the first thing we've done, and it's to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors and Robert Lawton. Dear Supervisors, this letter is to express our thanks to you and Mr. Lawton for your action in opposing the Senate Bill 1617. 1617 would impose additional taxes on our citizens relating to the state. This legislation would be hurtful to our county taxpayers and property owners, and we feel your decision was wise and responsible. We look forward to occasions such as this when we can give positive recognition to those in public service who exemplify excellence in government. Sincerely, signed by myself. Okay, as a member of the taxpayers group, we would like to ask you to support Proposition 98 and oppose Proposition 99. We feel there's, without going into the arguments right now, we feel it's overwhelmingly obvious, at least to us, that the Proposition 99 really does serve to protect the property owner against unreasonable eminent domain, as well as to eventually do away with rent control, which is very hurtful in a free society. Okay, now, I don't have authority from the Taxpayer Association, but I'm also a member of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, and they're urging their members and everybody to contact our state representatives regarding three constitutional amendments which would seek to do away with Prop 13 or to reduce its protections. One of them is Assembly Constitutional Amendment number 10, Senate Constitutional Amendment 17, and Senate Constitutional Amendment 12. And so we urge you, or I urge you, to express your disapproval of those three constitutional amendments to our state representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good morning. My name is bos51308. I'm known as Nick Talley.
Could you spell that, please? Our clerk will be hard pressed. Actually, you can sign in on the...
I did. I put my abbreviated name, which I'm known
Okay.
by, is Nick Talley. Makes it a lot easier.
Okay, thank you.
I live at 433 Lakeview Road, Copperopolis. 6 houses are on that court. 4 of them are rental units, R1 zoning. 18 people get in those houses, multiplied by 4, in a cul-de-sac that only there's maybe 3 parking space, extra parking space for the homeowners. I purchased this property in 1985, planning when I retire to move up here and live here permanently. Since then, I have invested in a lot of other properties in Calaveras County, none of are rentals, and I pay a lot of taxes to this county. Right now, 2 weeks from now is coming, which I want to come up here and enjoy my life. I used to look forward on the weekend to come to the lake and enjoy it. Now when I think about this, am I going to go over there? I'm going to be stressed. Why do I even want to go up there? It's just gone to a point that I can't invite relatives to my house because they foul language till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning from the people that move in there. The manager that is running this thing tells me that call me when there's a problem. You call him, he doesn't answer the phone, so management is not going to do anything about it. There are times like 2 weeks from now, there's going to be fireworks going on, firecrackers going on, as fire hazard. If there is a fire in there, there's no way for a fire engine to come to that cul-de-sac. There's a trailer parked right in front of the fire hydrant permanently. We can't get it removed. Right now, all I am asking is, we got a law in the books, R1 zoning. I want to know how to go by to enforce that law. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but right now, I just want that law enforced. Please help me on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
I'm Jerry Brock. My address is 415 Lakeview Road, Copperopolis. I live at the lake, like I told you last week. I'm here to talk about the R1 zoning at Boca Flat. I'm going to give you an example here, okay? I would like the council, ask the council this question. Let's say we have a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit on Highway 4. And the county or the state says they're in the process of revising this 55-mile-an-hour zone to a 70-mile-an-hour zone. You with me? So I was driving 70 miles per hour in this 55-mile-an-hour zone, and the CHP gave me a ticket for excessive speed. I go to the judge for the speeding ticket. I tell the judge the state or the county is in process of changing the speed zone from 55 to 70 miles per hour. I'm asking you, the council, the supervisors, will the judge fine me, or will he say the state and county are in the process of changing the speed zone so you don't have to pay a fine?
Well, you're talking to one of the leading experts in that topic right here with Mr. Claudino.
My opinion is guilty. Will you need time to pay this?
The drift of this story is we have a zoning laws, R1 zoning laws of Lake Tulloch right now. Why can't you enforce the law right now instead of waiting for somebody to revise R1 zoning? I'm asking the question.
Good question.
Is there anybody on the staff that would like to respond at this moment?
Would you like me to respond?
Well, it depends on what the response is actually, but go ahead. Give it a try.
Stephanie Moreno, Director of Community Development. It is true that it is currently not allowed in the zoning, but what we have heard over the last year and a half is that we need to be less reactive to the pre-existing policies that were in place and consider the consequences of suddenly enforcing laws that had not been enforced previously. In light of that, we recognize that these particular issues will have an effect on the economy of the Lake Tulloch area. Right now, it is an important time to recognize that people are having trouble making mortgage payments, making other types of payments, and suddenly coming down and telling them they can't do this may have an economic effect on the people living in the area. We recognize that we need to do something. We certainly can contact people right away and let them know that their behavior is impacting the county, may cause us to change the rules so that we can accommodate Mr. Brock and the other neighbors in the area. But we would like to recognize that there should be some balance, that there should be some allowance for these types of revenue-generating properties in the county, but recognize they shouldn't be taking over the entire neighborhood. One of the things that we'll be coming in with in early June is soliciting input from the board to find out if they'd like to establish permitting for these types of operations in R1 zoning, if they want to totally abandon the use of them in these types of residential areas. One of the ideas that came forward is to take a look at it the way we do ABC licensing, which is you have quotas in certain areas so that you don't have an overabundance and the type of behavior that occurs sometimes when you have a whole bunch of party houses on one cul-de-sac. But that is the response that we are trying to do. We're trying to be sympathetic to what we've heard from the board and the community in the past. If you'd like us to immediately enforce, we certainly can do that.
Well, I think the question that I heard raised, there were several different elements to it. One was the behavior of people and individuals that are disrupting their community, and that's not a zoning issue, that's a behavior issue, although it does relate to rentals conceivably, but not necessarily. I'm wondering, and this is certainly not in your department's domain, but I'm wondering what ordinances or rules and what kind of enforcement we have in the kind of language, noise, disruptive behavior that seems to be happening in this community, and I would imagine that the sheriff might be the appropriate staff to respond, who's standing right behind you.
Yes, I know, and I just want to say the noise ordinance is part of our responsibility, and we do not have one at this time.
All right, so we have no noise ordinance, but what do we have in the way of code that might help abate the problem, at least one part of this problem?
Actually, alcohol-related stuff, we can handle that like we would any other circumstances. I mean, if people are drunk, unable to take care of their own safety. A big problem we have with these things, well, there's a bunch of problems, but up until about 9 o'clock at night, we don't have anything to enforce a whole bunch of people in a party house. The courts have ruled over and over again that our peace can't be disturbed. We don't have a local noise ordinance, and courts have also ruled against the abundance of profanity laws that are on the books. I mean, they're just simply not enforceable. We need a noise ordinance. We also need some kind of regulation that either code compliance or us can deal with what these houses are used for. And then certainly we find it more in the Arnold area than we do in Tulloch. We'll find that some of these houses are either rented or owned by people. We'll have basically teenagers come up, bring 30, 40 of their friends, and then when we do respond, we're stuck there for half the night waiting for mommy and daddy to show up to take care of us. So it absolutely depletes our resources. Something terrible. The biggest thing we could use to shut down a lot of the activity during regular hours is a noise ordinance. Stephanie and I talked about that yesterday. She is bringing something before you to address this, and we would like to kind of push the noise ordinance again during that time.
Well, I have to say something. We have a lot of rental TOT type units in the Ebbets Pass corridor. And we've been able to, for the most part, resolve them through the homeowners association and in contact with the homeowners. I occasionally get phone calls such as yours regarding that, and that's how we've tried to work it. I mean, the other is the teenagers or whomever and mom and dad is not a TOT type issue, is not a under 30 days you can't, which is a TOT issue because 30 days or more is considered long-term rental. I don't even know why the county should be getting involved in this issue. With the exception, we have a lot of places that are not in homeowners associations. And let the respective homeowners associations manage that. If there's, first of all, I almost not sure I even support a noise ordinance, because then we have to have a decibel officer go around and with a decibel machine to see what the decibel level is. And I don't want to get into that, but Sheriff, I thought your officers have been very good about going to units and asking them to please keep the noise level down, or at least in the Ebbets Pass corridor they have. And yes, I mean, we have many more TOT type rentals in Ebbets Pass than they do in the Copper area. But I don't really want the county to become a TOT cop.
We absolutely do respond to those calls. Our first course of action is to ask the people to knock it off, turn it down. And we get probably 95% compliance with that, and that's, no matter what kind of law we had, that would be our first approach to it. But when these have been community or ongoing over and over and over again, and we're not able to solve it in that fashion, the one thing we've done with homeowners groups and neighbors, quite frankly, is encourage them to file a civil suit for devaluing their property. And as soon as the owners of those places get those letters from homeowners groups, it tends to knock a lot of the stuff off. I know it was successful in Lilac Park with a couple of places. So anyway, we do respond, we do try to calm it down without taking enforcement action, but we do need tools in case it doesn't stop.
I'm glad you brought that up as far as the board of the association, because we, as members of the association, went to different homeowners and had them sign a petition so we could put it on the ballot for the homeowners to vote. I think there was 330 people voted, 220 people voted to eliminate short-term rentals at the lake. The board could not pass this because in our CC&Rs it says we have 500, I believe it's 594 homes there. 399 people have to go to this. So the board couldn't make a ruling on it. So that's why we came to the county. That zoning law says protect us. We're asking you to protect us. You know, I said it last week and I want to say it again. You don't really realize the problem until you're sitting right on top of it. And then it gets very, very irritating. When the developer started planning and developing a Poker Flat, they went to the county and had it zoned R1, single-family dwellings, very plainly. It is still zoned R1 today. There are some property managers and real estate people that are abusing this. The R1 zoning is in effect now. I want the county to enforce this zoning law now. I'd like your comment.
In items from the public and public comment, generally the protocol is that this is the public speaking, not the board. We would need to, if we were making decisions on this, we would need to agendize it as a board item.
So in simple form, what are you telling me?
I'm saying that under items from the public, the board cannot make decisions. We are taking input.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interject here, we have requested that this item be brought back to us in a study session. And since Supervisor Callaway has said just now that she doesn't know why we're involved in this, if I could weigh in on this a little bit, I think that in many ways this is no different than if somebody moved in a slaughterhouse next door to these people. It's clearly the county would be involved in those concerns, and so this, I mean, this is. I realize that there may be economic ramifications, but I don't think that we can close our eyes to the imposition that these uses are suddenly being thrust upon the residents of these subdivisions. So I don't know that I have 100% of the solution for it, but we need to talk about it.
My final say, well, it's not going to be my final say, but I would like to say this. You know, everybody talks about the economy, okay? Now, these are vacation homes down here. People that get a loan on them have to qualify for their income, not on projected income from rentals.
Everybody can struggle with the economy, but the economy will get better when everybody wants it to get better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Thomas, are you requesting a study session to
No, the study
review
session,
the implications?
the study session was requested last week,
All right. And do we have a date set for that?
maybe.
First week in June. I'm sorry, the second week in June, I think this one's over.
The second Tuesday in June? All right, and I do look forward to being able to actually review this in some greater depth, because there are lots of implications for our policies and ranging from noise to, from behavioral issues to law enforcement issues to zoning issues to simply working out neighbor-to-neighbor dispute issues, which we don't seem very good at in a lot of parts of this county. So there's plenty to talk about in this, and I would hope that we would have that kind of a broad base. We also have a phone policy that might be, Marita might want to remind people.
I really apologize, that's terrible.
At any rate, sir, welcome to the board. Could you state your name and if you state
Now I'm too embarrassed to say my name.
He's from AT&T.
I'm Jim McCown. I live at 347 Sunrise Road in Poker Flat, neighbor of these people. There are a couple of things that
Okay, that's 2 strikes.
well,
with the sheriff right behind you. So.
I'm going to try to turn it clear off. I'm sorry. I really apologize for such things.
Actually, it's not that bad a violation.
Yes, it is.
That may be a client calling, Jim. You better.
It doesn't matter. A couple of things that were brought up while Jerry Block was up here speaking. One is that the financial hardship, and I think that you know, a perfect example is if you move in an illegal business. If I'm having financial problems and I decide, okay, I think I'll just grow a little pot in my backyard so that I can help make ends meet, I'm going to have some legal issues.
We'll tax it.
If I break any other rule, let's say, okay, I'm going to open my garage up and hang a shingle out and say I'm going to start doing automotive repair here in this R1 neighborhood, I'm going to have legal issues. And the homeowners association has a certain amount of power, like if I decide to hang my shingle up for automotive repair, yes, the CC&Rs say you can't run a business out of your home, so the homeowners association has a little authority. However, when there is nothing in the CC&Rs, no homeowners association has the authority to enforce laws. We can't enforce the zoning laws, we can't enforce traffic laws, we can't enforce any other kind. We can have someone growing pot in their backyard and all we can do is call the sheriff. We can't go over and tell them not to do so. Because we are not a law enforcement agency. We have no police powers. We have only the authority given to us in the governing documents that were set up at the time the subdivision was established or have been modified by the vote of the homeowners since that time. If I break a law of any kind, an existing law, I have to expect that the proper agency will be coming to tell me that I can't do that, and either the sheriff will be visiting me with a pair of handcuffs, or I'll be getting a citation to appear, something of that nature. I don't believe that this rule is any different. The zoning laws are no different and should not be dealt with any differently, regardless of whether or not we're going to study it, regardless of whether or not it's a hardship for me personally or for someone else. The laws are set there for a reason. We need to be addressing those laws. Can I also speak on one other thing?
Yes, if it's not on the agenda later.
It's not on the agenda later, and it's very short.
All right. Help yourself.
Poker Flat property owners 3 years ago entered into an agreement with the county for a left turn lane. Poker Flat agreed to assess themselves a total of $60,000 to pay their portion of that, which at the time, that was what the county agreed to. Victoria was the supervisor in the district at that time, and that was the agreement, is that Corporate Platte would assess ourselves $60,000, and that we would give that portion of the county to do the left turn lane. We're now 3 years later. Last year, it was pretty sure we was going to get it done in the spring of last year. This year, we were pretty sure we was going to get it done in the spring of this year. And now then, unfortunately, Mr. Thomas had to be the bearer of bad news that we're looking at the spring of next year. And I guess that my question is there anything at all that we can do short of just paying for the whole thing to get the county to expedite this and live up to their agreement that they would come in and put in a left turn lane for us? Now, I realize there have been some issues with space, and that there had to be some kind of retaining walls built unless the neighboring property owner on the opposite side of the road was willing to let there be an encroachment on his property. But that really, in all due respect, that's not the problem of Corporate Platte property owners. That is the county's issue, not ours. And we have done what we said we'd do, and I would certainly like to see this left turn lane happen. We were talking about the intersection and the danger there. This is a very dangerous entrance, and the more traffic that's on Burns Ferry Road, the more dangerous the entrance is. And that was why the owners of this association agreed that we would assess ourselves to help pay for it, is to make it safer for not just our members, but for people visiting Corporate Platte and for people just driving up and down on Burns Ferry Road. So we would really like to see some kind of pressure from the board put on Public Works to get the lead out and get this going. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers under items from the public? Sheriff Downham.
Good morning. I just wanted to very quickly give you an update where we are on our never-ending jail project here. About a week ago, Corrections Standards Authority released their rankings, and in the small counties, we came out preliminarily at 4th. They've offered us $10 million towards the construction of a new jail. Our request was for a little over $26 million. One of the reasons we finished low was because the point value they assigned to our cost per bed, we fully believe that they calculated it wrong, and we're in the process with the assistance of CDCR in appealing that category. If we're successful in that, our point value would make us either 1 or 2 in the process. Additionally, it's very complicated and very difficult to explain here in a couple of minutes, but there is a re-entry part of this whole jail funding thing. The 3 people ahead of us have basically offered up pieces of land that CDCR is currently evaluating to see whether they're appropriate for a re-entry facility. Everything has to be done within a 90-day window, turning the land over to the state, having the state approve it, having all the environmental impact work. Everything has to be done in a 90-day window. CDCR has told us that they fully expect at least 1 and maybe 2 of those people to fall off the table in that process, which would then move us up for full funding. So I guess what I'm telling you is we're in a position that we don't necessarily like, but we certainly haven't given up, and we believe that there is a very significant chance of getting the full funding that we requested. A couple other issues. Mr. Lawton is trying to pull together a meeting with board members and people to discuss Measure J monies and where we're at on that, what we can do, what we should do, those sorts of things. Our consultant/architect is assisting us in kind of tweaking designs around for worst case scenario, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of work yet to be done, but we are far from the end of this process for funding. So
If I can answer any questions, I'd be glad to. If not, that's kind of the thumbnail sketch.
Okay, any questions?
Dennis, any idea of the timing about this? I mean, you're looking forward to some decisions being made about the reevaluation of points and perhaps the
according to the law, our appeal, from the time it's filed, the CSA has a 60-day window that they have to rule on it within that time frame. Our appeal should be reaching them by the middle of next week. The final decision on funding, well, actually, Bill, on our appeal, we're trying to get it in quick enough because there is a CSA meeting in July. We're hoping if we get it in early enough, we can get a ruling in July. Maybe kind of optimistic on our part, but at least in a 60-day window, they have to rule on it. The final decisions for the funding and what order will be the
18th of September.
Is it the 18th? It's in September, the 18th. So, and there's a lot of other concerns that kind of go with this. I mean, every month you delay our inflation estimates that we made when we submitted our proposal, are they still going to be good by the time this gets there? There's a whole lot of stuff that's going to take smarter people than me to figure out, but I think the big thing is to get the full funding.
I guess I have a request to the board, given that it goes in next week, that if the recommendation is that there needs to be a letter from the board accompanying that we just sort of authorize the chair to sign a letter without necessarily bringing it back. The board has been very supportive of this all along. All we're doing is appealing this one portion of the award. I don't know if a letter's appropriate, but if it's deemed appropriate, I'd like Steve to be able to sign a letter saying so.
We're meeting with CDCR, and one of the things we need to ask them is what needs to be attached to this award, and certainly if that is appropriate, we will bring you a draft and
just let them sign it.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to say that.
I believe that would be consistent with board policy and would not need any action today or any other time. It's simply restating our existing approach.
Position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McSorley.
Tim McSorley, Council of Governments. I will be brief. I have two quick items. First of all, the Council of Governments will be holding a special meeting on May 22nd at 6:30 here in these chambers to discuss the possibility of entering into a memorandum of understanding with Amador and Tuolumne counties to pool our CMAQ for congestion mitigation and air quality funds. In fact, we were talking about 1226. And if we're successful in doing that, we're actually going to be able to, in fiscal year 10-11, be able to fully fund the right-of-way and construction of that particular project. So I'm bringing that forward for our representatives to
I won't be there.
be able to arrange for an alternate. And I will be available to assist those alternates in discussing the item.
One moment. We're trying to determine who the backup for this is, and in fact, Marita, all of us are backups. There's a one, two, three, four,
what was the date again, Tim?
May 22nd. So Thursday.
6:30.
At 6:30 in these chambers.
I've got a community plan meeting that night.
That would make
We'll
Bill
figure it out.
Bill would be
Thank
the
you.
next up on that. I'm the last on 5.
And I will be contacting Supervisor Tryon specifically as well. The second item, if you haven't seen, the dirt is flying on the Angels Camp bypass. In fact, the fills are pretty much all the way built, so the contractor is really doing a bang-up job in meeting his schedule. And so I wanted to just kind of those of us that have a little bit of nostalgia, considering that next Monday, Rural Area Bypass will be closed forever. If you want to drive that road and get one last view, we welcome that, and it will not interrupt construction. With that.
So you can someday say, I remember when.
Exactly. It will be severed. Rural Area Bypass will be severed by the new construction forever. There will be no crossing the new state right-of-way.
But there won't be a roundabout, right?
There will not be a roundabout, no.
Just checking.
Mr. Chairman, Tim, I noticed on your agenda for last week that you had some discussion about the wagon trail route.
Yes.
I know that's probably still decades away, but you were here some months ago or recently, and we talked about the Pool Station Road, the dangerousness of that intersection. Can you give me an update on that?
I would have to check back with Caltrans and give you a call. I don't have any current information.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, any other items from the public? One more.
Stephanie Marin, Director of Community Development. I just wanted to give you an update because I know it's a hot button issue, but the legal access ordinance was approved by, or recommended as approved, as presented by the Planning Commission. Will be back to the board at the end of May for final review. We have filled all but one of the positions on the Legal Access Committee with interested parties, and we will be convening the first meeting before it comes back to the board.
Okay, and will we have the document before the end of May? What's our ETA on that?
It's already been submitted for review, I believe, to the CAO. It'll be presented as part of the agenda a week prior to the meeting, I believe is when you get it.
Thank you, and online as well?
We will put it online as soon as we have approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the public? In that case, we turn our attention to this fine group of people who have been waiting low these many minutes for their, what was it, their 9:10 agenda item. This is from our Behavioral Health Department with a resolution.
Thank you. I'm Rita Downs, Director of Behavioral Health Services for Calaveras County. And I do want to thank Ms. Newman for her comments. She's absolutely correct on some of the dilemmas that I think face small counties more than large counties, because, in fact, Medi-Cal does cover mental health services through their physical health care, managed care plans for persons who have mental disorders caused by a physical disability. But what happens in a small county is you just don't have those providers available. And truly, it is ruled out and not allowed through our Medi-Cal contract. So we try to do the best we can with our clubhouse services, which I'll mention a little bit more. But we are here to request that you pass a resolution naming May as Mental Health Month. May as Mental Health Month was created more than 50 years ago by Mental Health America to raise awareness about mental health conditions and the importance of mental wellness for all. This year's theme is Get Connected, and we have a few examples of how people can get connected to improve their mental wellness, or as our new psychiatrist, Dr. Muller, likes to say, mind health, which we like that phrase now. Some examples of what you can do are get connected to family and friends to feel close and supported. Get connected to your community to feel a sense of belonging and purpose. Get connected to professional help to feel better when you're stressed and having trouble coping. Connect to coworkers. Given the amount of time we dedicate to work, healthy relationships with coworkers are a must. And connect to community members. Shifting from our own issues to the needs of others can be a healthy change of pace. Find an organization to volunteer with. Additionally, this month, public television has a documentary that will be showing on Wednesday, May 21st at 9 p.m. on depression out of the shadows. And it will be followed by an interview, I think, with Jane Pauley after that. And for those people with insomnia, tonight, I believe, public television, Channel 6, has a documentary called Men Get Depression. But it's at 1:30 this morning. It says Thursday, May 15th, which I assume it would be tonight. So those with insomnia, that was be out there for you to watch. Additionally, we are having an open house this Friday at our new service center, the Annex, located at 373 West Street, West St. Charles Street, Suite E, and that is by the Umpqua Bank and by the Public Health Annex. We will be having also an open house, not just of our mental health services there, our clubhouse and adult system of care services, but of our new perinatal program, which services women and their children who have drug and alcohol problems. And just to let you know, we will be dedicating that perinatal program to Deirdre Donovan-Blood, who was one of our community services liaisons who was killed in a car accident last December. And the perinatal program will be called Deirdre's Way. And for those of you who knew Deirdre, you'll understand that. So May 16th from 11 to 2 at our Behavioral Health Annex. We'd like to see you all there, and we have some handouts for you. I also wanted to talk just a little bit about the other services we provide regularly. First of all, our department is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for any crisis emergency. We are available for walk-in crises or emergency services during working hours, 8 to 5, and on Tuesday and Thursday nights until 8 o'clock. And we are available after hours through a crisis line, which answers our phone with persons who can handle a crisis on the phone or can refer people to our local emergency room if they should need an evaluation. That phone number is 800-499-3030, or our office number, 754-6525. And I just want to give you a quick update on some new services that we've been doing this year since receiving some of our Mental Health Services Act funds. As we mentioned before, we do have the clubhouse available every Friday, open to people who are not necessarily consumers now of mental health services, but people who consider themselves in recovery from mental disorders, who want to get together, socialize, and become perhaps active, involved in the community, doing volunteer work, or identifying what interests they have. We have a drop-in day every other Friday at our behavioral health clinic where people who are coming for services can just drop in and visit and socialize with one another, have some food, music. Sometimes we have little presentations on those days, and our staff mingled with the consumers on a peer-to-peer basis. We have Spanish language family support groups available in several parts of the county now. We are doing outreach to isolated older adults who have serious mental illnesses with an outreach worker, specifically in addition to our senior peer counseling program. We are also doing outreach to isolated adults who have chronic mental illnesses and who tend to stay away from services, stay away from socialization. But we have a staff member who's available to go out and visit people in their homes and encourage them to join in other activities. And we are also doing outreach to transitional age youth. Those are youth ages 16 to 25, thereabouts, who maybe have aged out of the foster care system or have behavioral health issues or just having trouble adjusting to adult life. And at the same time, we are involved in a planning process for prevention and early intervention Mental Health Services Act funds, and we have been doing community meetings and focus groups with agencies and interested persons. So if anyone has any feedback they would like to give us, just contact me at 754-6525, as we will have some monies available for prevention and early intervention activities in the community. And that's what I have to say, and Jeannie Boyce will come and share a little more.
Good morning. Jeannie Boyce, Director of Calaveras County Health Services Agency. Rita gave you a little update about some of the services that we're providing, and I've asked some of the mental health staff that could make it today to come to the board so that you could see our front line of the mental health program, behavioral health services, and some of our substance abuse program folks who every day deal with families and individuals who are suffering angst and need some assistance in accessing resources both in the county and outside the county. All of us know someone with a mental illness or have experienced a friend who might have a mental illness, And quite frankly, we're all in this boat together. And I really thank Bonnie for coming forward and talking about her troubles in accessing services, because she's absolutely right. There is this categorical funding that we get from the federal and state governments that is shrinking, and that is getting more and more difficult for us to actually provide the services that people need. And those folks who suffer from brain injuries are one of the categories of people who really do fall through the cracks, where funding is not readily available to assist them. And all of us need to be really lobbying our both congressional U.S. senators and our state legislators to change that. And so thank you, Bonnie, for coming forward, because I share your pain. I am aware of others who also really suffer from not really knowing what to do. And so I've asked some of our staff, could you please stand up? Because these folks are on the front line with our very seriously mentally ill. From the time somebody comes through that door, which is absolutely important, they get a smiling face and aren't afraid to walk through the door, because quite frankly, it's really scary when somebody in your family is really ill and you don't know what to do, and it has to do with mind health. It does not have to do with physical health, although we all know physical and mental health are connected. You can't disconnect them. We disconnect them from a funding standpoint, but they're all connected. If you feel good about yourself, your physical health will be well. If you feel physically well, usually your mental health is doing a little bit better. But these folks from every day see people and try to make their lives a little bit better, try to help people. We have embraced the recovery model in this county, whereby individuals get to say what they'd like to see themselves do with their life and how to improve the quality of their life. And thank you all for your dedication to helping families and individuals in this county. Not everyone is here. Some of our doctors are working with clients now. Some of our other clinicians and staff are still working. But I thought it was important that people see people behind the scenes. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to mention one other website. There is a Network of Care website. It's www.networkofcare, and then you can put Calaveras. Most counties have this website. It is a tremendous website for people who want to learn more about what's available in terms of services within a particular county. So, for example, if you were looking for some help for your mother who might be in San Diego County, you type in Network of Care San Diego, and all the resources will come up for that county. It's quite ingenious. It was a private business that was put together by a legislator who was a champion of mental health services, Bruce Bronson, many, many years ago. And it's quite an interesting website for learning about the latest research. If you're interested in publications or just services, it's a tremendous website for all who might want to access that. So today we're here to ask for your support in adopting the resolution, and we appreciate your support that you've given us over the years for funding for mental health services.
Thank you. Before we entertain the resolution, I'd like to say a thing or two to the staff that came here. You waited a long time, and I appreciate your patience with our processes, but it would be less than appropriate if we didn't acknowledge you besides the resolution, and just recognizing the difficulty of what you're doing. The hardest constituency in Calaveras County is who you deal with day to day. And I don't know how you keep your spirits up with the challenges that you face, not the least of which is that we've got you housed in what I call the behavioral health diaspora, which has you living in bungalows or working in bungalows that were designed to fall apart maybe 2 decades ago, and also way far the other side of downtown. So how you keep yourselves cohesive up and serving in the way you do is, I think, a minor miracle. Actually, it's a major miracle, and you all deserve tremendous credit for what you've done for all of us. So thanks. And I'd also like to acknowledge that it's not just about staff, that there are people like Bonnie out there devoting their entire lives to making life just a little better for people who have had life experiences that are much tougher than most of us can even imagine. So without you and the advocates and the caregivers, this system would be just crippled. So thanks for everybody's participation, and the families and the community at large, which participates as well. I'd like to entertain a motion at this time for the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? There being none, passes on a 4-0-1 vote. Thank you so much. We now turn our attention to item number 10. This is the dog license ordinance. I believe slightly amended from our last discussion.
Morning, Sergeant Murray, Supervisor of Animal Services. Yes, I made the amendments that you requested on the dog license. There's a new chart showing the updated fee schedule.
That's separate from what we have is the old one.
You still have the old one?
Yes. 5 for 1 year, 12 for 2 years, which is 2 more. So maybe we should encourage people to do 2 years, and then we'll get more money. So, I mean, I think we know.
I do believe we got the non-amended one, but we were very clear about the numbers last time, and if it's all right with you, we'll make the motion today on the amended version rather than the one that's before us. Is that acceptable to the board?
Yeah, I move adoption as amended.
Is there any
Waive reading.
public discussion on this?
Is there discussion?
Okay, I'll second the motion.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-1. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
You're now, both items? Yes, we have item
Yes,
number,
the next
was
one.
that
11.
11?
Move adoption.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Waive reading.
Waive reading.
Waive reading, I'm sorry, yes. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 4-0-1.
Thank you.
A good day at the pound.
No, the
No.
shelter.
Just kidding.
The
Just trying to see whether
shelter.
Marita's
Animal
actually
shelter.
listening. All right, we now will take a 5-minute recess before we discuss item 12. We will commence with the discussion and possible action on item 12. This is from the Community Development Agency regarding planning and building fees.
Thank you. Stephanie Moreno, Director of Community Development. The issue of the current building and planning fees was raised both in the City Gate report and the JS report as needing to be reviewed. It's been some time since they were reviewed. Maximus was hired in 2006 to review the fees. The board has requested that CDA bring these forward for review. We talked about it a few months ago, if you remember, came in with some suggestions on lowering the fees on the planning side and reviewed the building fees as well. Recognizing that this is a very tough time to be raising fees, we also recognize that given the budget situation, that it's important that we are collecting the amount of fees that it costs to provide services to the consumers. So we feel that the presentation of the fees provides that balance, and that Maximus feels that these are legally defensible fees. You had asked about additional efficiencies that can be provided in the department. I enclosed copies in your agenda of what the JIS report and the Citygate report had recommended. We've completed 90% of those items already in providing increased efficiencies on training of staff within the department. We have also, in addition to that, done a number of things that will provide greater service to the consumers at the front counter, we hope, and prevent problems by putting a building inspector at the front counter to help review plans and allow the plan check staff not to have to come up so often. We've moved a building inspector over to the planning side to do mitigation monitoring on planning. She is also currently assigned to do a sign inventory for the county, which is not going to just identify those areas where signs are out of compliance, but will actually be sending letters to existing businesses indicating that their signs are legal or legal non-conforming, so that they have proof of that in the file for future reference, so that we feel that that's a good public service to provide businesses. We're also currently enforcing the contractor license requirements on all sites for both general and subcontractors. Building inspectors are now citing those jobs where with correction notices in those areas where contractors don't have licenses, because that really is taking away work from the licensed contractors, and it's also undercutting the prices of the licensed contractors. And we feel that at this time it's especially important to be making sure when there's not enough work to go around that it is going to those that are licensed by law. So we have implemented that as well. What I'd like to suggest to the board is that, and I did some research on this, what other jurisdictions are doing, primarily outside of California is where I'm noting it, though, is that we allow, in certain cases, property owners to use a payment plan to pay for their fees on the building side. If the house is under a certain amount of square footage, which could be determined by the board, but I would say 1,600 square feet or less, if we allowed the property owners to pay a multi-year payment plan that was secured by a lien on their property taxes, it would allow them to spread their payments over time, and it would be secured for the county through a promissory note that the county could, if they wanted to, charge a minor amount of interest on, but certainly an administrative fee to cover the cost of putting as a lien on the property taxes. And I'm not suggesting just the building permit fees, but it could also be used to pay for other types of fees, such as the RIM fees or other departmental fees that drive up the cost of pulling a building permit for a property owner. I'm not suggesting it for contractors, but just for property owners that are building, owner builders. Or it could be a contractor that is building a house under contract for a property owner, and the property owner is paying the fees rather than the contractor. And I'm suggesting it only on those homes that are considered affordable housing. It would also help us meet some of the goals that we've set forth for the housing element to provide greater access to affordable housing. It could also be used for businesses that are coming in, and that's where I saw in my research primarily is headed for businesses to have a payment plan to spread costs, because quite often starting up in a business there's quite a lot of initial overhead involved in that. Could also be secured against the property taxes where it's the owner that is opening the business. Another option is to allow the use of credit cards. I know the county has talked about that. In the past, there's never been any resolution of it, and that is another option. If we were allowed to process credit card payments at the CDA counter, it would allow people to make payments over time on their credit cards and not have to come up front. So those are the issues that I like to throw out there for the board to consider as they consider increased fees, but allow people to have an easier time of making those payments. Also have Bob Selman and Mike Rodriguez here to answer any questions you have regarding the fees or the actual implementation of efficiency measures. I would like you to note on the planning fee schedule, per board discussion, we reduced the amount of the administrative use permit for historical community events to $250, the appeals to the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission to $100 each. And I did this, I didn't talk to you about it, and I can certainly increase it, but I also reduced the sign review fee down to $500. Again, that is for businesses, and I thought that would be more appropriate cost associated with that. Also on your schedule where it says proposed fees and it says 0, in any area where it says T&M in the first column under unit, that actually should read T&M under fee amount, time and materials. It's not free, but it's charged at a time and materials basis. There were 2 areas where that hit. That was on development agreement and environmental mitigation monitoring.
Stephanie, I have a question, just out of my curiosity. With the sign review, that's a pretty good deduction. I have no objection to that. What does that entail?
It's the review of signs for businesses to make sure they're in compliance with the ordinances. It involves a site visit, sometimes a pre-site visit to see where they want to put it, a post-site visit to make sure that it's been put up appropriately. It seemed to me that we could do that, streamline that process so that it doesn't quite cost so much.
Thank you. Any other board questions?
I have comments for the...
I'd like to wait for the public
I'm
hearing.
not sure. Stephanie, how would you like to take comments? Would you like to do planning first and then building, or...
However you'd like is fine with me.
Okay.
And how does the board feel about the order of business? Do we want to take public comment in this public hearing before asking our questions and making our comments?
Well, I think I'd like to keep planning and building separate.
Okay, so we take...
So if there's any, not, I have some comments on planning, so.
All right, and to go before or after the public hearing?
I'll go after the public.
All right, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing to gain comments and perspectives from members of the public on both. We'll do just planning for starts, and then we'll have a second stage of this for building.
My name is Albert Segala, and I live in Copperopolis, and I'm speaking for myself. I'm somewhat familiar with, I've been doing business with the building department and planning department for 35 years. And although I'm not a developer, I've built homes, and I've become somewhat familiar with that process. And then when I was a very young man, I was a building inspector in Hayward, and so I learned something from the inside. And as a taxpayer, I'm a little bit concerned about what's happening here. We seem to have a cost overrun of perhaps 100% over what would normally be expected. I don't have the figures, and I studied your county website, and I read the Maximus report, which is very, very tedious. And it seems what's occurring is we're taking expenditures that are happening, which go beyond the income that comes in from the contractors or property owners, and then paying that out of the general part of our treasury, and then we're switching that now to increasing user fees by perhaps 100% to make it so that the taxpayers are not paying for it, but the people who are applying for permits pay for it. It could be that it's justified, and certainly I agree with the leader of the Community Development Department when she said that she proposed a process of making payments, and that's a very good idea. I don't think you need to distinguish or discriminate between who the applicant is, but it seemed like any applicant would make them easier to start their project if they didn't have such a heavy burden up front. And actually, I'm surprised that wasn't done years and years ago. But the county needs to operate efficiently, and it needs to have the data in order to do so. And there are two things that come to mind that need to be looked at, and they may have been, I'm not sure. It's not on the website, and I don't have any information. One is the long-term pattern of income and expenses in the planning and building departments. Look at it perhaps 10 or 20 years. Put it on a graph, and you'll be able to see what's happening there. If there's an unusual amount of expenditures with a consistent income, that indicates that there needs to be perhaps some management considerations or changes. If the problem is caused by a drop-off in income because of recession in the building department, the building field that we're experiencing, then that's a different matter. It would seem that if we are staffed to be able to handle the quantity of permits that you would have in a boom time, and then when you're not in a boom time, try to maintain that level of staff, it'll be a tremendous burden of expense. It's awful hard to be lean and mean when you're dealing with public service employees, civil service employees. So that probably indicates an idea that it may lead to flexibility to be able to contract some of that out, so you can expand and contract along with the needs of those services. The other thing that needs to be done is to look at the other jurisdictions, the other counties, similar to ours, and see what their pattern is compared to ours. That should give you an indication on management of how, if changes need to be made, to try to identify the problems that we would have, if we do have. I'm assuming we have problems because you have a 100% increase in costs. There's got to be a reason for that. And the last suggestion I'd like to make is that perhaps maybe a mini grace commission of some sort, where you would have an outside, maybe an efficiency expert, but someone who would not be there to continue any policy that the board may have or not have, but would simply tell the truth about what's going on and give you a report that then you can act on. That would be totally unbiased. I think that would be indicated because of the tremendous amount of increase in expenses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rod Weathers, I'm with the Calaveras County Builders Association. I'll just speak maybe just right now on the planning side, on Stephanie's comments. I agree the credit card payments is a good idea. There's been numerous times I've come down and been surprised with a quick little fee and have to run down to Wells Fargo and do the little ATM thing to get $42 or $47 or whatever it is, because my wife takes all my money. Or my kid, usually, like this morning it was $3 for lunch. So I think that's an excellent idea. I'd like to see that go on. In regard to the time and materials association with the plan check fees and things, I think that's a good idea, but I would say that would be good with a cap on it. As contractor, the Contractor State License Board requires us, if we do a time and materials job, to have a cap on it. So whether you have a time and materials job, because otherwise they could essentially stretch out a project for eons, and the guy would just get the bill until he ran out of money. I mean, technically. So it might help expedite some of the process and know that they're on a schedule, and that we have a deadline and we have things that we need to meet for the client. It's expected of myself, so therefore, I would expect that of the county as a business also. A couple of housekeeping issues. One thing that is kind of been brought to my attention more so nowadays than in the old days, and it used to happen in the old days, is that we were able to, when we brought in a set of plans, they would redline the plans if there were minor details or minor things that could be adjusted. Let's say the draftsman or somebody put on the plans that there was a note and the code was a wrong code, Well, nowadays, what happens is a lot of times minor issues are being noted on the plans by the plan checker and then sent back so that they end up with a clean set of plans. It has to be re-reviewed and then resent back in by the draftsman and then re-reviewed again by staff. So if they know it and they've basically written it all over the plan, why can't we just get a red line set of plans that
But
has
that's
those?
the building side.
No, and
not
also
on the
with planning too, because we just did this on, and actually Public Works, all three departments have the same kind of thing that's going on. And it would be nice, and I know that they've said, a lot of times they said, well, then it gets into design, then we're really overstepping our bounds. Well, I don't understand why we can't have a form at the counter that basically the builder or the person submitting the plans can sign off that it's okay to redline the plans if the issues are minor, and then that way they can be done and issued in a quicker fashion. And therefore, as builders, or developers or whoever is applying, that they would be able to get their plans quicker. So, it would expedite the process. It would keep the things coming back into the department down to more of a minimum. Because we just recently had one. We had to put on there some note regarding a spotted owl. We didn't cloud the area of the fill. This was one in Public Works. We didn't have the code correct on that they had actually just changed, even though we put the exact form from the county, but we were in just in a little transition phase. And it was just a matter of, all they had to do was write it on there, because he essentially wrote everything on there anyway, and we could have shot it out the door. Instead, it was, through the mail, back to the draftsman. Then he had to correct those things, full new set of plans, 2 new sets of plans, another trip back down here to submit, and then another 10 days, for it to be processed. So it's just like kind of beating a dead horse, So if we can, kind of expedite the process, would be helpful for those in the industry. Also, just another little housekeeping note too. Different departments, I know Planning and Public Works both require it, and I think and also a couple of forms in the Building Department, that they now require that the owner's signature be on certain forms and initials. And I really don't see a purpose in this, because how does the department know what the owner's signature looks like? So if they really want to resolve it so that there is an awareness of it, then I suggest that it be a recorded document, or that the owners get a notarized document that states that the person coming in on their behalf is their agent, so that at least they know that the paperwork that they're submitting, that everybody is aware of what it is. Because, I could walk out the door, say I got the owner's signature, but they could be in India, and who knows? I could sign it off. But I think it's just a housekeeping issue, and I think that, if that's the direction that they want to go, then I suggest then make it all completely legal, and do it through a recorded document that travels with the parcel, so that the next person that gets that knows that owner signed off on whether it was a grading issue or a grading plan or a building plan, that those items then are recorded and they travel with the document, that those travel with that set of that house or that project. So, and then another thing is that sometimes we're not allowed to mail certain documentations back, and it's just different departments that do it. And it would be nice if we were able to do more correspondence through the mail, so we don't have to spend the gas money to get here. So it's just, because we don't have the office up the hill anymore, and so it's,
Bring
it's a
it
little
to
bit.
my house, I'll bring it in.
Okay, I know you. But it would be nice if we could do a little more mail correspondence, or that we were allowed to do all correspondence. If we have an open file that we're allowed to bring that in. So anyway, those are just some points I'd like to bring up.
I'm trying to make sure I'm in the right public hearing, but This is about the fee schedule that's before us. Do you have any comments on that? I'd be interested.
Well,
in what your
those also
association-
involve the fees, because all of those documentations travel with all the fees that were
Right.
mentioned before.
I do understand
And
that.
so-
but are there any you'd like to highlight for us that are...
Well, one is that if we can cut down on some of this work, then our fee schedule should be less. That's my point, is that if we keep spending the staff time to keep rechecking things and redoing things and not allowing us to process certain things, then, then we're increasing our own fees, just by the nature of the beast,
Actually, I was trying to be specific where the ones that you've raised, do you see a nexus to any particular fees that are here that would...
See, that's another thing is we
down?
didn't get a fee schedule. We don't know what the fees are because we don't have a copy of that. Yeah, it would be nice if we did prior to the meeting.
Were these not posted in the customary way? Our board packets are now being posted in their entirety as we get them ourselves.
With everything, and where was that located?
It's supposed to, all documentation.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, this was, I know this was put on personally, I saw it.
So with the fee schedule? And, okay.
Let's just make sure. I saw the fee schedule up, is that correct?
Yeah, but I mean...
And it was on the board website.
How early was that posted, by the way?
Last week.
The board of supervisors posted the packet.
Last week. It should have been a week. When we get our packets on Tuesday, and we agreed as a board that we would be posting that to the public concurrently with that.
And that's is that on the front page of the website, by the way?
You have to go under the supervisors.
Under Board of Supervisors, you get our whole packet, all the supporting documents, everything is available. Anything that's available to us, except for closed session items, is now available to the public at the same time it's available to the board.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak on the planning fees?
Hi, my name is Holly Mines, and I must confess that I did not download the packet. I do have a good excuse, but I won't go into it. However, I did talk to somebody who did, and my understanding is that the new proposed fees are stated on the document. However, I, in the interest of public disclosure, would like to have a chart which would show what the current fees are, if any, then the proposed new fees, and then following up on Mr. Segala's comment, at least one column which either cites fees from the neighboring counties that would be comparable in size to ours, or an average of neighboring counties' fees, so that people can see, are our fees in line with other counties, and which ones have been increased and which have been decreased. It would just make it a lot easier, for people to inform themselves and understand what this process is about. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments in this public hearing section regarding planning fees?
My phone's turned off. Jim McCown, 347 Sunrise Road, Copperopolis. The only thing I'd like to comment on the fees, and I'm guessing it would apply to planning and building, the total fees for a permit of any kind, is the idea of allowing people to pay this to the county on a time basis. When people go to get their loans for their homes or their new business or whatever, they should include these fees, and then that's included in the payments they make there. It seems to me this would be a really, really bad investment for the county to get involved in, and starting to be a lender, if you will. I think that the idea of the credit cards, boy, that's great, because I've been in here when I had to go to Wells Fargo as well, and it's really a pain in the rear, to be honest with you, and especially the first time I didn't know where Wells Fargo was. So, but as far as for the county to be in the business of lending money, which is what that amounts to, I really think that's a poor idea, and that's from a builder standpoint, from a homeowner standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other member of the public wish to speak on this segment of the public hearing? Seeing no further participants, I'd like to bring this back to the board. We're not closing, but we are suspending the public hearing for discussion now. The board will resume public comment on the building side when complete with this discussion.
I want to make comments on the planning side. On the administrative use permit for historic community events, I don't even support 250. I will only speak for the Ebbets Pass corridor. On the one, we have one event, which we've had for about 28 years. It does not impact the county. We pay over $400 to Caltrans to use the state highway for 1 hour. We have a formula in place that we get approval from the California Highway Patrol. We use sheriff's volunteers. The sheriff's office has been very supportive of this. And to pay $250 to the county for something that we're not even on a county road, well, that's not true. We usually start the parade on a county road that nobody uses. I just think that 250 is inappropriate, and I know under the 250, it's the county was going to do all the paperwork, but in the case of Ebbets Pass, we have it down, and so then we'd be paying $250 to the county for I don't know what. So my recommendation, and this would be for all of the historic community events, that it be changed to 100, and that give the planning department or CDA director the authority to waive that if necessary. I mean, it would, in the case of Ebbets Pass, the Arnold Independence Day Parade doesn't make money, it just raises enough money to pay Caltrans. CHP doesn't charge anything, and they have an officer at each end of the parade route, and it's only for an hour. The other question I have, and I know what the code says, so it might need to be a code change, is that if communities have antique fairs or something, and they're not closing any road and they're having it on private property, they are still supposed to get an administrative permit. I don't know what we're going to be telling them. You have to what? I don't know what they would be getting for their $100 or $250. So I feel each community has its own quirks. Each event for historic community events has its own specific issues that it might deal with, and that if it's appropriate, yeah, we should charge them. The concern I have about historic is, I think 3 years or so ago, Burson started Burson Homecoming Day, right? 3 years ago. So it's not, it might become a historic event if they can do it 2 or 3 more years, but I mean, here's a community that was starting an event. They didn't impact the state highway. They had it on private property, and it was to recognize the history of Burson. So even though it's not a historic community event, it is something that's done by the Burson business community. So, I mean, there's no silver lining here, which I think is why I would like there to be some discretion given to the Community Development Office to waive it or to say it doesn't apply. Yet at the same time, there's ones that have road closures and take more work, like the Murphy's
Black Bar Day.
Homecoming or Black Bart Days in San Andreas. I mean, those are a little bit different. I'd still want them for $100. And something like Burson Homecoming might be $0. Arnold Independence Day Parade, $0. That's my...
So,
Thank you.
I don't understand exactly, you want the CDA to have discretion.
To have some discretion. If it takes work, like
So
Black
you
Bart
want-
Days
You
or
want it
like
under time and
Murphy's.
material, perhaps?
No, just $100.
What if it costs nothing, or what if it costs us $500? What if it's not
If
historical?
it's 500, it's 100. If it costs nothing, like Burson Homecoming or like Arnold Independence Day, then they could waive it. There's nothing they're doing for an hour's worth of work. I mean, I brought the documents in. This year was the first time. They have insurance. They do CHP. They do Caltrans, and they're having to pay Caltrans because of the high state highway. So, to me, there's no involvement in the county's part. Murphy's Homecoming is different. Black Bart's different, and there might be some other. If you say you want money, no, I'm looking behind you. You're not saying nothing.
Mike Walker, Undersheriff. Some of these events do have an impact. If they serve alcohol, if they have road closures, generally there is staff from the sheriff's office that has to attend these events to keep the peace. So there is an impact on the county for some of these events.
Well, that's why I said Murphy's Homecoming, or like Bill mentioned, Black Bart. Yes, there is an impact.
And the impact would be more than $100.
Right. Well, you can take it out of the narcotics unit. I mean, my feeling is these are what make communities.
They are, and
make
that's
it-
why we are there to protect them. But there is an impact to various county departments to provide that service.
Understand that.
Okay, other board comments on the planning fees? If they're not, I'll make mine. That's a threat.
Could you get the timer out?
Yes, all right. I'll be as fast as I know how. I have a couple of comments on a couple of issues. One pertaining to the item Marita raised, which I am in agreement with her sentiments. And there are several different categories that I'm not even sure what we're talking about. For instance, what is a historic thing? I've got some that are as many as 58 years old. I've got things like the venerable Moke Hill 4th of July parade, the Lumberjack Days. We have the new Sierra Century bike thing from the Sacramento Wheelmen. We have the hoedown for habitat that happens in another district. We have Art in the Garden, which is 10 years old. We have Pedro and Bingo, which go on in some towns, have become a great tradition for many years and are events of some sort. It seems to me they fall into a number of different categories, and I want to make sure that we are doing no harm to any of the following. Number one, we have community organizations, nonprofits, and service organizations that are trying to do work that, in fact, in some cases, the county ought to be doing, but we don't. They're filling in gaps. They're filling in the NAMI, for instance, in previous discussion, is filling in a gap where the county cannot provide mental health services, and NAMI has fundraisers for the purpose of developing resources toward that end. We have 4-H clubs that hold benefits. We have all manner of good things happening, some historic and some not at all. Lumberjack Days, by the way, raised $30,000, giving $2,000 for every student who graduated from high school in West Point this year. That's a pretty big deal, and I don't want to take any money out of that. And they don't cause trouble. They fix their stuff. We used to have brawls in the street, but that's a thing of the past. And just want acknowledgement that we've joined a whole different ambiance up there. There was actually art, quilt shows, and a bistro in the last Lumberjack Days. So along with the beer and brats and other things. So in my view, those kinds of things we should not be gouging them because they are actually doing community good in the public interest. Now, the historic ones, you can probably get a definition of what that means. But what about the startups? What about organizations that are trying to begin holding events to sustain themselves? Are they going to be paying so much that the entire amount that would normally go to charity would be given to the county for the permitting process? I don't think that's helpful, especially in as much as some of these startups become later historic events, become a part of the life of our communities, and ultimately bring money, people, tourists, and others in to drop their money on our local businesses. So I'm not just interested in acknowledging, although I'm very interested in that as well, the things that have been going on for a long time in my district, but I want to encourage new things that allow worthy organizations, particularly nonprofits and service organizations, to get things underway that could build. Now, if you look at the possibility of them paying $1,528 is the original proposed. We'd be doing $250 for historical community events. I worry that we'd be doing $1,528 for these others. I can tell you that's more than most of these startups make in their first, second, third, fourth, sometimes even fifth years. It means that they would not happen. It would have a chilling effect on a worthy. It's something that we want to have happen as a matter of public policy. So my proposal would be that for nonprofits, community service organizations, for historic, some kind of defined historic events, that we would have, that this would be a county contribution, that this is something that we feel good about as a matter of public policy, and that we want to encourage those things to happen. We want to encourage those that are existing to continue, and we want good startups to be able to get going. So I take this totally off the table from my perspective, although in a compromise, being probably on the far side of this, I would support this initiative at 100. The second thing I'd like to comment on is the general plan amendments. And some, we'll get into the building stuff, I suppose, later, but there are some amendments that serve public policy. We are an ag supporting county, right to farm county. When you take something out of unclassified land and put it into ag, I take that as a good thing. And that's sometimes involves zoning, but we also have often accompanying general plan amendments that have to go along with it. There are also things relating to affordable housing and that might require those things, and I understand that we have some mechanisms to waive those, but I want to make sure that those are inherent in whatever action we take today. There may be other specific public policy goals that have not yet been so formally stated as our housing and our ag stuff that we may want to consider, and I'd like to hear any thoughts that you might have about those. I want to make sure those are stated up front before taking action on this, because I would want no staff to get confused about how important those goals are for this board and this county, and I would not want information that leads people to be discouraged to do conservation easements, farm conversions to farmland, conversions from higher density to things like the wildlife quarters and other things that have become proposals by landowners in my district, and if they're faced with large fees as they try to do that, it will only have a negative effect on stated public policy goals. So be interested in your thoughts on that. Those are my only comments.
I got to address Supervisor Walensky. First on historic community events, the Sacramento Wheelman to me is not a community event.
Right, and I was raising two different types of things.
And something like that would not be included. Some of the community events require a great deal of time to process, such as the ones in Murphy's, or the one on Grapes. I mean, they have like 4 functions a year, which require a great deal, plus the one that Bill mentioned here in San Andreas. So it does require a great deal of time, and to me, $100 for something like those where there's closures, then, and letting the sheriff have his time too, because the sheriff does provide staff for events like that. And Mike, if I'm correct, you don't charge the communities for that staffing, do you?
We do not charge.
Okay, and we will leave it that way. My recommendation, of course. So I just want to be clear that you're not talking about the wheelmans that come in, or other bike groups that come in, or so forth that come in, that we just give it to them because they're a nonprofit?
No,
even though it's economically good?
Actually, I was just listing the different types of things and trying to categorize them. I forgot to mention my position on those outside organizations. I would charge them, but I would not go to $1,500.
So what is it that you would be looking at doing?
Well, for the kinds of things that we're trying to bring in, like that event, which does drop a lot of money on local businesses, my thinking is that we ought to have some graduated thing so that there's a startup fee, but that we move it with the size of the event as they grow. I'd like to see an escalating, I'd like to see a lower, something that can attract and allow people to try our county out, and then, if it's successful, see that there is some benefit to continuing it. But again, I'm trying not to repulse the very things that we're trying to attract here in this county, and see whether we can graduate these fees for those kinds of startups. So there's really three different categories. There's historical, there is the relatively new startups for service organizations that are local, indigenous,
like
county things, and the Burson historic societies, 4-H's, Lions clubs, events of that nature. And then finally, the third category being outside things that we're trying to attract here that may have startup numbers that are low, but have the potential to build and have some kind of escalating fee for that type of arrangement. And again, I agree with Marita that we should have some flexibility in our approach here that can be vested in the department, so it doesn't always come back to the board, but has clear policy parameters for the exercise of those discretions. And public benefit and economic benefit to the county should be two things that we ought to be looking at on a regular basis.
The other thing I want to address is I do support what Steve said about when we make some changes from, like, example, unclassified to ag, when projects come out of the Williamson Act, but that's not a general plan, that just sort of falls, doesn't it? That's just a zoning change, but a zoning change is $9,000.
I don't believe
that.
I don't believe we charge a zoning change on Williamson Act contract changes.
If you have a Williamson Act contract, that is incorporated as a county cost.
Okay.
But is that true of conservation easements and other transactions? Because
we don't have
some people have been getting different information.
We don't process conservation easements.
Yeah, there's no mandatory zone change with the conservation easement. So there will be no requirement from the
unless
county.
they're doing a parcel split.
Well, okay, there's a bunch of things of that nature happening. And
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all
Well,
right.
we just
Conservation
had-
easements are independent from zoning.
Yeah, we had a big one on Love Creek, and it was not, it did not require the county's involvement in that. Now, on county-initiated general plan amendments or zoning changes...
We don't charge for those.
We're not going to charge the Board of Supervisors then?
No.
And is that true of...
Well, can we charge the board?
No.
Oh.
Easy there. All right, so other board comments? Marita, are you...
No, Steve, I wasn't real clear in where you were going with some of the ag issues. Would you want that maybe broken down a little bit?
Could I address that first?
Sure, of course.
The general plan update will be removing all unclassified properties from the county. There won't be any left. So that will be a moot issue after we get the general plan update.
All right, but there's still people who are moving these things through, and I'm interested in what happens between now and when we have our general plan. I want to make sure we're not taking large fees out of people who are trying to do things that we've already, as a board, decided we want to encourage.
I'm not sure that we're taking any general plan amendments right at the current time that we've had many come in, but what we're advising people is that we're going to be processing them with the general plan update unless they have an urgent situation needs to be taken care of before that. We're just processing them with the general plan update, and I think most people have been agreeable with that.
Well, we received no new general plan.
Let me ask you, do you have any objection to having discretion to waive, in the case of affordable housing and ag, and conversion to ag land from non-ag, that may have a general plan amendment implication? Do you have any issue about waiving the high fees in favor of something lower for the things that benefit?
I have a problem on community events. I don't have a problem giving them that authority. On waiving fees for the kinds of things we're talking about, I don't want to give planning that authority. If they want to do a subcategory...
I'm not asking, I wasn't suggesting that they have the authority. I'm just asking whether they have an objection to that as an approach and that it can come back to the board for approval.
We have no objection to anything the board wishes us to do. However, the payment plan might be an option that you might want to consider offering to the planning side as well. New startup businesses that own their properties, such as agriculture, could these fees could be entered into and placed as a lien against the property, which would allow them to pay them over time. So
I'm
that is one
actually looking
option.
to reduce the burden, and I was listening to one public comment, which I've got to do some thinking about becoming a lender. So I'm not sure that's not really getting to the point I'm making, which is the question of whether we discourage the startups or the conversions that benefit or that serve already stated public policy.
If the Board of Supervisors would like to have a varied schedule for, depending on the types of uses that are proposed for the property, I would recommend that they amend the general plan to incorporate those as implementation measures in the general plan, so that it's supporting the goals of the county to support ag by decreasing the amount of fees involved in putting land into ag production. That way you have it as clearly in the goals. It's in the general plan update. You're not getting into a situation of waiving fees on an individual basis. That can be done. You can initiate a text amendment to the general plan now to incorporate that.
All right, well, we'll call the board on some of these individual things before taking final action, but I'm curious if there are other comments from the board at this time on planning side.
I have a couple of questions about the recent discussion here. With regard to the affordable housing, are there not currently some relief measures in effect for people that want to build affordable housing as far as this?
We don't have anything as far as our fees go.
There's nothing.
What we do have is, in our housing element, last I read it, was that we have some discretion about fees. These are voluntary. It's not mandatory. We don't require it, but it's a discussion item and can be brought before the planning commission and board. that's where it stands, I think. Maybe, did I read it right?
We have brought resolutions to the board to waive or reduce fees for Habitat for Humanity projects that support affordable housing. We can do that for others as well. I was trying to think on an individual basis of an individual property owner trying to build themselves a small home, that we might want to extend that, and it does help meet our affordable housing goals.
I'm certainly proposing that. I thought we had some discretion in this as it exists, but
We
I would
do not.
I'd like to see it formalized in this process.
Would you like me to address some of the other questions that were raised before you continue? I didn't know if everybody had talked yet.
Well, let's see whether we've got any other board questions or comments, and then move to that.
I have no objection to trying to further the policy directions of this board. Put it in a general plan statement. I mean, that would be a good thing. I like the idea of just having the fee schedule revised. That would give anybody at a glance could see that we have a lower fee structure for lessening the intensity of uses, as opposed to a higher fee for more intense uses. I guess what pops into my head, though, is we also have a lot of discussion lately about economic development, so we wouldn't want to penalize somebody who wanted to do an intensified use if they were going to produce 100 jobs, too. So that's a kind of a thorny issue. Is it likely that we're going to be able to do this today, or, I mean, it seems like we're getting farther away from a decision here the more we talk. So.
Well, we're in a public hearing, and I guess we could ultimately take action at the end of that, which I would expect to bring back to you shortly.
Okay. All right.
Other comments, questions? All right. Director Moreno?
To respond to the speakers that spoke, and some of them I think mixed the building and planning, but I'll just go ahead and respond to them. Relative to the cost overruns in the CDA agency and why we're raising fees, I believe if you take a look at the budgets that it's not a matter of overspending our budget, it's a matter of the permit fees not coming in that were predicted. The 2006-07 budget, which was put together before I arrived, was $1 million short in its permit revenues for that year. The 07-08 looks to be that it's going to be about $500,000 short in permit revenues. And we have reduced our 08-09 budget so that we are proposing a cost-neutral approach where there would be no money coming out of the general fund, again, assuming that we bring in permit fees. And we're recommending that be re-reviewed halfway through the budget year towards the end of the construction cycle to see where we're at. We are staffed to a level that reflected earlier construction days. It is the board's decision as to whether to make reductions in staff. Our agency recognizes that one layoff has a sevenfold impact in the community because that person then therefore doesn't have the income to do what they did previously, and so it does have an economic impact to do layoffs, and so I recognize that will be a tough decision for you to make later on, but at this time we've made reductions in vacant positions, reductions in expenditures so that we are portraying a cost-neutral budget. We've been conservative in using Maximus figures for predictions because Maximus was done over a period of time, and obviously the economy has shrunk even further since they concluded their study. The second speaker The time and materials that we're talking about are on the planning side, and traditionally, we do have a pretty good idea of how much that's going to cost the person before they enter into those agreements. Time and materials on the building side is usually limited to those things that are not covered by set fees and are normally a 1 to 3 hour type of basis. We would certainly not say you have to have time and materials and not have some indication of how much time is estimated and involved in the project. Relative to the redlining of plans, unless something has changed outside of my purview, we still do redline of plans and allow minor changes to be incorporated. There are some qualifications on that, however. We're not allowed to change engineered plans without the engineer's approval, so typically those would go back to an engineer, although I have authorized before staff to get verbal okays from engineers over the phone so that we can expedite projects and allow those red lines to continue. So we do have a process, I think, that is working well. I can't speak for the grading plan process, which is no longer within our agency. But we do allow minor red lines to move forward. Now, if it has to do with providing calculations, obviously we can't allow those. They have to go back and be redone. Relative to the owner's signature on forms and initials, I'm not sure what that is referring to, other than the fact that we sometimes have owners come in and put in a building application as an owner-builder, and then suddenly there's a contractor at the counter that's doing work for them, and we need to have a sign-off from the owner that they are an authorized representative. In those cases, we do require the owner's signature. If it is an owner-builder job, we need to have owner-builder signatures and initials on projects. So those are the only two situations where I can imagine what would be an issue. We do allow people to mail things in other than their initial applications. If they're making an application, they need to do so in person. But if they're providing follow-up information, we do allow them to be mailed. They can fax them. They could scan them and send them over email. And if differing information is going out from my front counter, I can correct that, but that is our current process. Relative to Speaker 3, we didn't do a survey of neighboring counties because these fees are not based on anything other than what it's taking, the time it's taking us to do the business. The Maximus did the fee study based on the amount of time that it takes to do the work, and it's no longer valuation-based, no longer comparable county-based. It's purely on how much it's costing the county to provide the service. In those cases, we wouldn't do a survey of neighboring counties because we're asking you to recover costs. We certainly can do one if you would like us to. What we heard from Maximus on the building side of the equation is that we were still fairly low statewide. I don't believe they made those comparisons for planning. Planning's all over the board. Speaker 4 talked about the payment plans, county getting into the lending business. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that it is getting involved in economic development for its county. Because people building homes are going out and hiring contractors, and they're buying furniture, and they're moving to the county to live here and work at jobs here, or retire here and spend their pensions, however it is. But I would look at it as meeting the goals of our housing element on affordable housing, meeting the goals of our ag element, our soon-to-be ag element, and general plan on agricultural issues. And working towards, public-private partnerships on economic development. Relative to the administrative use permits for historical events, I was thinking that it would be a 10-year mark would constitute an historical event, but the board can set whatever time frame they would like. We really don't care how much you want to charge. We recognize that these are good for the community. One option might be, if you really don't want to charge as much, is to increase your discretionary funds for each district to accommodate a certain number of these events each year so the individual supervisor can make a decision to help fund some of these events. Another thought that occurred to me as you were talking is that perhaps the outside events, you could give a certain amount of money, and I don't know if you already do, to the Visitors Bureau, and maybe the Visitors Bureau could handle the applications for outside events and save some of the time frame that the county is investing in the application, so it would reduce the fee that way, maybe if they were interested in helping in that, because it is also good for the county economic development. These people coming in stay in hotels, they eat in local restaurants, and we certainly don't want to do anything to discourage these types of events. The nonprofit issue is a little trickier because nonprofits can be set up for a variety of different reasons. If you wanted to have a different fee for nonprofits, I would suggest that you either make it that the goal of the fundraiser is for a community benefit, which could be clearly defined, or that it be a 501(c) as opposed to the 501(4)s that allow for lobbying and special interests and political activities, that we limit it to those that are truly community service based. I already addressed the unclassified issue and the agricultural issue, and I think I covered everything that was raised.
Okay, thank you. Shall we take input on the building side and then summarize? I'll close the door on this. All right. Board comments and positions on the planning fees. Russ, would you like to start? We'll just go down the line.
The first note that I made here is Supervisor Callaway's suggestion about reducing line 2 to $100 and giving authority to waive it. Do you want to expand on the criteria for that, or is that just open to the discretion of the county?
Could I make a suggestion on this? It appears that we have at least a direction or a drift to our thoughts on this, but it's not completely fleshed out. We could take the two fees that have come up for detailed discussion here and ask for further work on the administrative use permit, and perhaps if there's a board wish on the general plan amendment stuff, and take the rest and pass it if there's not a dispute about anything else.
Well, I think we've already spent over $100 talking about it. I'd like to reduce it to $100, that it's for in-county. Maybe just drop the word historical to just community events. Okay. And for the benefit of the community, the communities that they're doing it. I think the intent is for the 4-H and the Arnold Parade and the groups that were using the Burson Business Association. I think that's clear direction. If it's an outside group wanting to come in, I think there needs to be $500 or.
So you're talking about local community events.
Local community events. Thank you.
And what about those that have, how do you feel about those that do have impact? We have closures of the roads, et cetera.
Well, I think it's $100. Yeah, but if it's for something like the Arnold Parade, where the county's not even involved at all, there's nothing, but for Black Birthday or for Murphy's, that it's $100.
Right, and on that waiver question, were you also considering giving some discretion to the agency for instance, there are events like the Pedro and Bingo and some of the things that people have been beginning to talk about, use permits.
The code says if it's over 1,000 people, right, Stephanie? I'm just trying to remember what the code says. I know,
It kicks it to a higher level, and I'm sorry I failed to address that.
Even smaller.
so if we have bingo at the Moose Lodge, they have to get a permit every week?
I would suggest that, that you allow us to review that and come back. It was not my understanding that we were requiring permits for events that are being conducted inside on the part of a business. For example, a sidewalk sale is not shutting down a street. That's merely to sell wares, to me, should be an allowable use. But I was unaware that this is an issue, and I'd like to take a look at it.
All right. So you want to take, we could pass this much and then leave the other events and discretion issue for a further review? Is that what you're suggesting?
I would suggest that you pass this and leave the historical community events, maybe take that to $100, but let us come back in with a clarification on the code, if you want to continue that for a week, so that we can tell you exactly what the code requires on those kinds of events. You can give us direction, and then we can
I
initiate
didn't
a
think
code
bingo at
change.
the Moose Lodge requires a permit, or at the West Point Community Center requires a permit.
It's not, that's not what's being,
I don't think that we've done
right
that.
now it's not being done, but there's a concern in the community as we discuss this that we are clear on our intent and that we waive certain things and define others.
Mr. Chairman, Robert Sullivan, Planning Director. These are issues that are slightly outside of the issue of the fee itself. I think really what we need to do is really look at the language within the administrative use permit provisions.
Yes.
There's quite a broad range of uses, so, I mean, it's one we've struggled with ourselves. We've tried to use our discretion. We don't have discretion on fee. If they trip it, we have to collect the fee. So
all right.
If we set the fee at this level, we can come back.
All right. So if we set it for basically indigenous nonprofit service and historic events.
That is what Bob was talking about. That's the code. I'll set the fee at $100, the asterisk being
what's in and what's
waived
out,
or modified by Community Development Agency. What Bob and Stephanie are talking about, I think, are code issues, and we can change that.
If I could request that you not give me the discretion to waive fees, but instead perhaps direction to bring it up to the board for the board to do the waiver. But
well, I think what we're drifting toward here is that we would ask that you look at your administrative use permit language, as Bob suggested, and that you come back to us as early as you can, because this is event season coming up, and that we meanwhile take this, and I believe there's consensus for $100 on the fee itself.
And the reason I don't want it coming to the board, Stephanie, it's going to cost you more than $100 to bring it to the board.
It would
I
be
mean,
nice
it could
to
be
just give
Community Development Director and the CAO.
Let's perfect our language, make sure that things we don't intend to ding are left out of it altogether. That keeps it from bollocksing up your department anyway, and let's get on with the language stuff after we take action on this. So we appear to have one alteration from 250 down to 100 in administrative use permits, and we've crossed out historical community events, and we're talking about local community events.
instead of historical, it's local.
Right.
Yes.
And I have a question still. I'm not sure that I understand correctly, but that's all local community events? I mean, the first one of the year is one of the oldest and biggest in the county, and that's the powwow. We just had an issue with that.
Right.
And they have their event for 34 years.
And it would be 100 for everybody.
We actually believe the powwow might be a legal non-conforming use. It's so old.
I know.
Well, that's for further discussion in the different
Emphasis word legal.
I guess my question would be, under local, are you interpreting that to mean happening local, or by a local community group is sponsoring it? I need to know that.
Group.
So it's sponsored by a local community group.
Yes,
So
not just
somebody
somebody that
coming in
comes
for a
in here to
bike
have a
ride does not get the $100 fee.
All right, now, on the general plan amendment aspect, was there any sense of allowing some discretion relating
No,
to stated
no,
goals.
I don't want discretion. I want it clear, I think it's clear, it needs to be clear.
All right, well,
If we
I'm
do
talking about
5,000 for a general plan amendment and whatever is determined appropriate in the ag arena, because that was the issue, right?
And,
Steve,
well, it
that
was
you
ag
want?
and affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Those were the two board policies that seemed to,
If you would like to continue that portion of it for a week, we can come back next week and give you clarification on what actually it says in the general plan
All
and
right.
in the codes, and then we can get direction
all
from
right.
you
So,
at that time.
so let me try to be specific about it. For ag, affordable housing, and other previously standing board policies, general plan amendments that are affected by that, I'd like to see either a waiver altogether and a mechanism for that.
So,
either board
general
or-
plan and zoning.
Brady, you're
I
talking
don't
about
want to see a
departmental.
waiver.
Okay.
No, I'm just asking what you want us to look at for next
A
week,
tiered-
is general plan and zoning for
Tiered.
change.
Tiered structure.
So, Steve, let me give you an example.
Yes.
I have A1, and I want to take it and rezone it to R1 or R3. I'm taking ag land out. That would be not included.
That's
But if I have R3 or 1, and I want to make it A1, it would be included.
That's,
Okay.
yes, that's exactly. And essentially, it's from a higher, denser use to a less dense, serving a policy goal.
Okay.
So, for instance, there's,
The ag,
Well, we need to be careful with that, because that would mean that R3 to R1 would be covered on a...
right, if
and
they,
we don't want
on
that.
affordable housing. So I'm interested in somebody taking a look at all the implications
Okay.
for those two issues and any others that are stated as standing goals of the county.
Will do.
Should be clear in the implementation measures in the general plan that we've been sometimes ignoring.
Mr. Chairman, am I to understand that both those categories under the administrative use permits will be brought back for review?
That's correct.
Okay,
And that we would be acting on all others,
okay.
if there were to be a motion at this time.
So moved.
Move to adopt as amended.
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any comment?
Could you include in the motion what your effective date might be? I would recommend no earlier than June 30th or July 1st for the new fiscal year, to give people time to get in under the old fee structure. I'm not sure if there's a 60-day requirement or not on development fees. We can check on that.
Well, I'd sure like to know before we take action.
It's a resolution, so it doesn't have the standard language, but I know there may be state law on that.
I think there's a delay for the effective date for the fees. I thought it was 30 days.
I thought so too.
Right, so July 1st would be
July 1st would be-
appropriate in that event, and it also corresponds with the fiscal year, which allows our accountants not to go nuts, and surely we could budget without all kinds of fancy dancing, so...
Okay,
it would
I'll
appear to be-
amend the motion for July 1st.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Oh, there's a second. I'd like to make a quick comment before voting. There's been a lot of discussion in these for some time that seems to fall into two categories. There's the desire for effective, timely service, and then there's a desire to keep things cheap. In this county, we've gone a lot of years on the keep things cheap, and it's resulted in having some of the lowest fees, in fact, even not having fees in areas that most other counties long ago adopted. What that has resulted in, and it's hit the papers rather strongly in the last year or so, is the idea that we're now spending literally millions of dollars over a period of time from general fund money to subsidize this part of doing business in Calaveras County. The goal here is to get back to something closer to normal, at least by California standards, and see whether we can stop the hemorrhage of our general fund, which is running at approximately a $1.5 million a year structural deficit. And in this one action, if we adopt both of these, we can get ourselves to a, well, it won't be neutral during the downtimes, but it certainly will be sustainable in a way that we have not really been for some time. So knowing that there's a certain element of political suicide to adopting this level of sticker shock fees, I nevertheless intend to vote for it because we just have not kept up with the times and the idea of in this year, in this budget year and next, trying to dip into our general fund to subsidize this further, I think would be a different kind of suicide. And so choosing the two options, I'll take the one that's in the public interest and take the personal risk. That said, is there any other statement before we? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no nays, that's unanimous 4-0 with one not attending. Now we will open the public hearing on the building fees. Is there anybody who would like to speak to building fees? Got to be at least somebody. Come on. Thanks.
Some of the same things that we've talked about before, some of the things that Stephanie addressed are in the process of being corrected. Those were only my own experiences that I spoke of earlier.
Yes, I'm sorry. While you have introduced yourself in another part of the hearing,
there we go.
please restate
I'm Rod
your name?
Weathers again.
Yes.
Still,
All right.
pretty much. A couple of things that, just as far as the fees in relation to the economic climate and everything, I know we keep bringing that same thing up. One thing that has happened to me that I've been involved with, that I've seen down there at the building department, is that numerous times people are turned away when they're very willing to give you money and they're very willing to keep the process going. So my suggestion is that that even though somebody comes in, they have a viable plan, they have something they want to do, is to snag them at the door. In other words, lock them in as a client. And it's only from personal experience, because I try to do the same thing to keep my business running, is that when I get somebody that's excited about building, I want to keep them excited about building. And what happens more often than not down there, or here now, is that I'll see somebody that'll come in that's very excited, and Russ has firsthand knowledge of this, is that people come in and they have a direction. They really want to pay their fees, and they want to do things right. And what happens is the system is so huge that people get discouraged because they're sent out the door, you don't have this or you don't have that. And I would just encourage you to, whether you start a file on these people, and they come in, they have a projected project, maybe even just a form that says, this is what I intend to do, this is what I'm applying for, is just that they get a spot in the drawer at least, or a direction that they can go. And then that way, you kind of lock them in to moving their project forward instead of sending them back out without, all they know is that they got to go to this department next. And then they go to that department, and then they're back to the original department, and then they go, no, well, now you need to go over here. Well, it would be nice if, and I think one of the things that they've done by having someone in building inspector or planner at the front counter is helpful. However, they're not, they really don't know the whole system. And that's something that I've even had a chance to even talk to people at the counter when they're like, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know, and you just make a suggestion about who that they could possibly see to get their process or their progress moving forward. And so it's almost like if you could take them in, get a file started on them, and then give them a to-do list that they go out of there happy. It was kind of almost what you had talked about when you went to the Stanislaus County Building Department, is that everybody's been going out of there happy. Well, I think if you give people a direction to move forward with their project, whatever it may be, that you're going to keep those people encouraged, and you get the opportunity to get the money out of them. Whether you take, you said, whether you take in a $20 application fee or whatever, just say, we'll start the process, these are the things that you need to go do. It keeps people encouraged about moving their process forward. I hear over and over times where people say, it's just too difficult. It's a pain to do, and they get discouraged, and so then they do it under the table. And so what's happening is you're having all these people that are discouraged going out of there, and they're going, well, I can't figure out the process. And so then that's why it encourages people to do things without permits. Whether it's applying for a permit for adding a light switch or whatever they want to do, I think that encouraging them to do it legally and keeping them happy and moving forward with their process is a key thing. So, I have some other examples, but those are just part of it. One thing that I'd also like to ask is that I know Valley Cooper's time is coming up. It would be interesting to get their responses regarding maybe the fees, and maybe the climate down there and how things are working, and where they can see that possibly the county can streamline things in the building department to make things not only affordable but profitable. Because, they're here as an outside source. They're in business. They see what it takes to make a business run with a profit, and therefore, I think it would be good to get their input on this whole fee structure itself too. So maybe before you close this, portion or this side of it, it would be nice to get a little additional input. Along with, it would be nice if we could have a little more time as builders and realtors to review the fee schedule, rather than just, getting it a week before. And, I know you guys say that it's posted on the website and everything, but part of what we have gone through numerous times here was the communication between the department and the Builders Association and Realtors. I didn't get a phone call. I know that most of the other people, in the builders side did not also. So it would be nice if we could improve the communication between the department when you have such issues like this coming down the pike. I know Stephanie had mentioned it to me at one of the
Now, the Builders Association was here when we had the study session on the Maximus report.
Right. But here we are, we're at the final report, the final things. It would be nice if we said, hey, we've got our final things, are you guys bringing in comments? Or, what do you see about the fee schedule and how we see it?
Valley Coopers did give us some information, and it's in the packet today, which is also on the internet. Okay.
And then are they going to do an exit report when they leave also? Just a question.
I'm not aware.
Just a question. Maybe she can answer that to that.
I'm
if they were going to prepare that.
I can answer that when I get back.
Okay.
All right.
We agree that the fees should be self-sustaining within the department. I think that's a good thing. So I think that we should be paying for what is the services that we are asking for, just in the same way that we as builders ask that our services be paid for also. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be any different. However, we do see areas where we can see some improvement, and that's administration, streamlining those things that we even spoke of. Again, but it would be nice if we had basically some more communication or more involvement with the building process, at least on the builder side. I don't know necessarily on the realtor side, but it would be nice if we were able to have some of those sessions that were promised to us earlier, that when we were doing certain things that we would be involved in, and, at least give it a call and say, hey, why don't we get together? We're coming down with some issues coming up, and that way we can, I think if we work together, I think we can see that we could also help streamline and maybe make things easier around the county also. Why not use the resources that you have at your bay with people in business, running businesses, can maybe find areas that will help the county save money and put money back in the coffers.
So Rod, what are you asking? You want to see the report that we did the study session on in March? You want to see that again? Plus,
be nice to have the one that JS had that was in your packet, the new packet, and give us more time to take a look at that. That we. Oh, that was just what was it, a week ago? You said?
Yeah, same time we got it.
Yeah, so it would be nice to have a little bit of time to review that.
Plus the fees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we weren't. I didn't
We're
realize
not that
we were
far different than what the packet was that you got in March.
Okay.
What's different is some reductions,
some
recommendations that were, I think, to some extent responsive to issues that were raised by your association.
At that time, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so as long as we, have some more, if we could have a little more time to maybe put some input, but if, for the most part, most of them are reductions, then I always for that. But on the other hand, we also think that we should pay for what we do. I mean, there's no doubt that, that staff should be paid, just like
So what are you asking for, 2 weeks delay to look at the fees again?
Yeah, or a week to 2 weeks. But it's up to you. I mean, you guys are the ones making the decision.
I mean, you had what we had in March and what we got Tuesday.
It would just be nice to have what we get,
like to
what was on the website as of Tuesday, is to get the final amounts of the collection of all the data.
Got it.
Because right now you're talking about, you've got the report from March, and then you got the report from JS, or from Valley Cooper.
From Valley Cooper, JAS, and Citygate. It's all on the
It's all on the website. But we didn't know it was on the website until right away.
If I might clarify this, please, Stephanie Moran, Director of Community Development. The JS report was on our website for a long time. I don't know that it's still there, but for months and months and months. It hasn't changed. It's the same report. The Valley Cooper report that's in the packet is one that was issued to the board last year in December. Builders Association was here. It's not a new report. It was just an update to you of what had been accomplished at that time. So they've already seen that quite some time ago. The builder fees have not been changed since March. We're presenting the exact same building fees that were presented to you in March. I haven't had any response from the Builders Association relative to that. I expected that they'd be contacting me after the study session. I didn't. I have had numerous contacts from individual contractors who have said the same thing that Rod said. We have no beef with paying our way, but it's a bad time to do it. Okay? So that's basically the thing. So I just want to clarify that all this information has been out there for some time.
Well, I do see some things that are different. We reduced the appeals.
Not on the building side.
Right, okay. On the building side, there's not anything.
Right.
You did round off pennies to dollars.
He'll throw in 45 cents.
That's right.
So, I still like the idea of the credit card payments. That's a good thing on this side also.
All right.
So I think that's an excellent idea. Because we get down there and, we get surprised with a, quick little thing, and I don't bring in that. I usually come down with my checks pre-made out. So I usually call ahead and try and make the process as easy for me as possible, but I know a lot of people don't. So I think, we should try and help them pay you. So I think that's a good idea. So any way that they can or whatever. And I don't know if those fees need to be adjusted to cover credit card payments or not, but I don't see any reason why they can't. But I know that some businesses, they do require, they add a little extra fee for 3% or 2% or whatever the fee is to process that.
About 3.5% at the pump.
So, anyway, that's all my comments on that, is just moving forward with that.
Thank
Okay.
you. Any other comments from the public on building fees?
This is Holly Mines again, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm just going to make general comments, and that is referring again to this idea of making comparisons with neighboring jurisdictions. I understand the rationale that these fees are based on, costs within the county. However, I keep hearing talk about trying to promote economic development in our county, and where better to start than within our own county government. We know by looking at the list of county employees and their starting salaries that the majority of them would all qualify for certain kinds of poverty benefits because our scale is so low. And so when we say, well, this is what it costs because we pay so much less than other places, that means we can't attract people, we have long vacancies, and we have a lot of attendant problems related to economic development because we continue to pay less, charge less, and then say, well, poor us, we're just this poor little county and we're discriminated against and it's not fair. But, when we have an opportunity to bring ourselves up to a par with our neighbors, I don't understand why we don't do it. And if we did raise fees so that people who are working in county government could earn a living wage, they might be more enthusiastic about their work, they might be more productive, and our county might rise in relation to our neighboring counties. So I'm still plugging for the idea of considering how we measure up to neighboring or equivalent counties and using that as part of a basis for making choices about how we charge fees. I noted that you spent almost an hour talking about whether you're going to charge $100 or $250 for one kind of permit, and no discussion about any of the other fees across the board, which amounted to many more thousands of dollars than a use fee for whether you're going to play Pedro or bingo or whatever. And it just seems like, we have to come into the 21st century, and it's a hard reality, but if we're going to develop economically, we've got to offer people that come to this county a living wage, and the county is a large employer, so that needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Any other comments, public comments on the second portion of our public hearing? In that event, would the CDA director like to respond to the comments made?
Thank you, Stephanie Moreno. Relative to Rod Weathers, I already addressed some of his comments, but relative to people being turned away at the door, this is a rock in the hard place for us because we want to make sure the applications are complete when they come in, because people get very frustrated when we take an application. It takes us a couple weeks maybe to take a look at it. If it's on the planning side, up to 30 days for the initial review. And then we contact them and say something's missing. And usually the response is, why didn't you tell me at the front counter? So there's frustration either way if we don't do an adequate review at the beginning. But more than that, if we don't do an adequate review at the beginning, we may miss something that keeps them from doing their project. And if we start through the process and give them false hope that they can do something, they get even more frustrated. So it's important for us to make sure that we have all of the requirements and documentations met before accepting the application, that we know that they have a sewer connection available to them, that they're not in an area that's in a moratorium, that we know that Public Works is going to allow them access off the road where they want to build their home, because that could change their site review, that if they have grading plans that are needed to be submitted, that they know what the slope issues are. We're trying to deal with this on a project basis, and ultimately, I think it benefits the consumer to make sure that we're doing that job up at the front, and rather than later on, a year or two down the line, in the case of planning, where they suddenly don't have legal access or some other issue that prevents them from moving forward. To that end, we have put more experienced staff at the front counter. We have a building inspector at the front counter to help go over plan reviews that can catch some of the things that are maybe beyond the training or experience of the permit techs on plans. We also have a planner assigned at the counter rather than a permit tech to answer questions on ordinances and code requirements, and to make sure the applications, the information that we're giving out is complete. So we are working hard with the customer at the counter, indeed trying to lock them in, make sure that they have a complete application. And I think over time, as our staff and the customers get more trained on the issues, that you'll see us turning fewer people away at the front counter. Relative to the people saying that it's too difficult to get through our process, that could have been the case in the past. I think that we've done a lot of good towards making things more user-friendly, more user-understandable at the front counter. I was amazed. I was at the Home and Garden Show. We had a booth there. How many people came up to me and said, I understand it takes 6 months to get a building permit from your agency, and it's just not true. There's a lot of rumors and innuendos out there, and one of the rumors out there is that it's impossible to get a permit through us. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy for many people. If we were out and the contractor shared with the public how much better it is now to get permits through, and I think Rod would be the first to admit that, then we would be putting a positive light out there, and people would be coming in and understanding that it is easier to get through the process. Valley Cooper, actually Mike Rodriguez is the one that worked with Maximus on the fee study, so if it's wrong, we get to blame him. But he actually was involved in the fee study and is supportive of what has been presented and gave the final okay before I moved forward to the department. Valley Cooper will be, and he's actually with Interwest, which is a subcontractor for Valley Cooper. Valley Cooper will be providing an exit report to us as part of their services. I think that it's important for everyone to understand that we've been working under their guidance for the last year, and so much of what has been implemented is with their purview and their review and their approval. So a lot of the good things that have happened on the building side are directly attributable to that contract. Relative to communication between the builders and the realtors, we have been trying to increase the level of communication. Unfortunately, due to various scheduling issues and budgeting issues and everything else that's been happening, much of my contact's been on an individual basis, but I do solicit input frequently. We are beefing up our website so that we can provide more information on there for people to access, and we will be initiating more development-related meetings as time goes on. Right now, we've been fighting a lot of fires, and our contacts with the community have been relative to issues that have arisen that we need to deal with, such as legal access, slope issues, things of that nature, where we do actively involve the Builders Association and other members of the development community. Making comparisons to neighboring jurisdictions from the second speaker, Holly. This is a different issue. If the board or the county believes that salaries are not comparable to other jurisdictions, we can't raise fees and then justify giving additional salaries. We'd have to do a salary survey to neighboring counties, find out if we are indeed low, if the board wants to do something about that, and then those would be incorporated when we do a fee review, which we will be reviewing these in 6 months. If the board adopts them, we're still going to be reviewing them 6 months to make sure they're on target, and those recommendations could be included in future fee increases, but we can't say we need more wages, so we're going to raise the fees. In order for it to be legally defensible, it has to be based on actual costs, and these are the costs that we have right now. I did want to recognize also that the board did increase fees for the planners last year, and that was done to assist with recruitment and was successful.
We didn't increase fees, we increased wages.
Pardon me?
We didn't increase fees, we increased wages.
I'm sorry, we increased planner wages.
Maybe we should have increased their fees.
I did also want to point out to you that although the building side is hoping to be budget neutral. Planning still has a great deal of general fund money that will be going in, even with the new fees, because the general plan update is an expensive project that we're managing right now and cannot be incorporated into these fees. So that still will have an item in this year's budget that will make it look as if there's a lot more from the general fund coming in than would be in a normal year.
Thank you. Okay, board, what's your pleasure?
I have a technical question. Under the IBC codes, what's the difference between A, A1, and B? George?
Good afternoon, Mike Rodriguez, Junior Chief Building Official. Your question is regarding...
Under the IBC codes, because we have different costs depending on if it's an
Construction
A
type.
occupancy, tenant improvement, B occupancy. I just wasn't clear what that was. Mike?
The IBC class that you're looking at in that column on the left-hand side would be the occupancy group. That's how they group the different types of uses that the buildings are being used for. A's are typically for assembly-type uses where you've got large numbers of people in the building. B's are more businesses. F's are factory-type uses, and the mercantile uses, and R is for residential.
So
it's just a
little change from
It's a little bit of a change from what the UBC used to, how they used to classify the occupancy, but it's pretty similar. Your construction types at the top, where you've got 1A, 1B,
Right.
and 5A and 5B, that's similar to the way the UBC did it as well, as far as how they classify different construction types.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments?
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't, Rod's asked for 2 weeks. I don't want to do a week, because that means an addendum. But I don't mind a 2 week. It's same, because we're going to, I'm assuming, make it effective July 1, like we did for planning. And if we did a 2 week,
Would still be within.
it would still be within the time frame. Stephanie, do you see a problem with that?
As long as we meet the time frame, I don't see a problem, but in all honesty,
Today's the 12th, 19th, we did it the 20th, then we have the 30 days to July 1.
Today's May 12th.
Yes, and then the 19th.
It'd be the
and then
26th.
And then the 27th. So we do it the 27th, then it takes effect July 1.
I don't have a problem with it. I just would like to confirm that these are the same fees that were reviewed by the builders in March. They have not changed. We did not get significant comments from them at that time, but if you want to wait 2 weeks, that's fine.
Well, why don't we see how the board feels about that particular issue. Bill?
Well, I don't see a need to wait. And I'm not trying to be obtuse here, but if I understand, unless I misunderstand, Rod, they're the same. You've had the JAS and the Valley Cooper have been out there for a long time, so you're familiar with those. These are basically, with the exception of a few reductions, are basically the same as you've had since March. There's been an awful lot of massaging here through various agencies, and of course the staff of the CDA, and then a couple of weeks ago, or a month ago, we wanted to come back and make sure about the efficiencies that went into this, and we have massaged this thing into the next dimension. In my mind, unless there's something that I'm not thinking of, we've really worked it about all that it can be, and I really appreciate your comment, especially on behalf of the Builders Association, that you understand this is about the cost of doing business similar to your business or perhaps other businesses. And again, unless I'm missing something, this is the same document that's been in front of us a number of times and out there for a couple of months. I would just as soon get the door closed on this and go on to the next thing. So unless there's some valid argument that I'm not aware of.
You're going to assure us that we have the same? Yeah, then that's all. We just were unaware that there was additional data, so therefore...
And you're not yet familiar with the idea that everything's posted on the web. You get your information the same time that we do, and that's something relatively new. And I think that you're going to probably be more vigilant about that in the future, just because it's there.
Right, and like I said, if we had known that the week before that we had that opportunity, then we probably would have been,
Exactly, yeah.
it would have been fine.
But like I say, unless there's something here I'm missing, I don't see any reason not to go ahead with this. That's my opinion.
Okay, Russ, on the same question.
Was that a motion, Bill?
Well, right now, I'm prepared to make the motion.
Yeah,
But
no, I'm fine with it. I'd be prepared to second your motion.
I would have extended the courtesy, but given that we were just carrying on with the trajectory originated at your instigation, actually, to some extent, I think that courtesy has been well performed over the time, and I'm sorry that people weren't aware. We did change the whole board conveyance mechanism, and now the entire public gets exactly what we get through electronically anyway, a week before each board meeting. And I hope people, for folks listening in on the television, this is a right extended to all people in Calaveras County and actually anywhere that has electronic devices. So we're hoping people will take advantage of that, and that we will be done with the accidental omissions from information conveyance. 1 week is what you get. If we get 2 weeks, you get 2 weeks. It's concurrent with the board. So I add my voice to the wish to take action today.
I'll make a motion then.
There's a motion.
To accept this fee schedule.
Second. Any further discussion? I'll add one piece to the discussion, which is that my hope is that we will move forward on the credit card thing, and that we will consider the incremental payment at another date, so that we would not be giving anybody instructions on that.
I was can we motion this? I want to do credit card after we take.
All right, so there's a motion, a second, and we'll talk about credit cards in just a minute. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 4-0, 1 absent vote. Credit cards.
Mr. Lawton, we've talked about credit cards in the past for different services throughout the county. It's not just for community development. So I think if we're going to do that, we should look at it on a broader base. I mean, some counties are even doing it for being able to pay your taxes. So even though it might be used more in this, there are other avenues. I'd like to see us look at it on a county-wide basis versus just a specific department.
The Assistant County Administrator and I have discussed this, and we'll bring it back to the finance officials here at the county and find a strategy that we can apply to ensure they're available as an option for all county payments. There may be at some point, because there's a discount associated with the use of credit cards, we might have to look at, in the longer term, incorporating not a credit surcharge, because I believe that's illegal, but in the larger fee structure, in determining our cost of doing business, we may need to include that discount in the larger fee structure. So we advertise it over all transactions.
All right. Well, I've seen a lot of people leave this county frustrated that they didn't have cash on hand, and I think it would be a good customer service addition here, so I hope this will come back at a time closer to now than later.
I'd rather take Rod Weathers' money now and then just put him on hold. If he wants to give me his money, we'll take your money.
All right.
Okay.
So I guess we've got
on the payment plan.
On that, on the payment plan, could I poll the board on your thoughts about that? We've had different opinions voiced in this hearing today. What is your thought about incremental or deferred payments on fees?
I have several questions. I would rather this topic be brought back at another time. We put a lane example on a piece of property, the house goes into foreclosure, where do we stand? We're out.
Right. That's
X amount. So
well, it would be a lien on the tax bill, so it would be recovered.
But
if it's
I'd like
accessed.
to look at it the same as it would.
Would it be okay with you if I agendize it for sometime in June with some more specific information?
No,
I'd rather see this be done on a countywide basis as well. I think the credit card thing is a countywide thing, and I think this kind of transaction may have implications for other departments as
Okay.
well, so it'd probably be good to have maybe even a department head discussion at some point, but certainly whatever the administrator feels is appropriate.
Okay.
Russ, any further?
I'm happy with that.
I just
All
want to
right.
confirm, I might have missed it, but the building fees take effect July 1st as well.
Yes, that would be consistent with the previous motion on planning, and that motion is concurrent with the other.
Thank you.
Both coming out of the same public hearing in its different parts. I want to thank everybody for attending and participating. This meeting is now closed. Correspondence, excuse me, I'm wrong. We have correspondence starting with Russ and meeting announcements, et cetera.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I have a conflict, at least for the early part of the LAFCO meeting on Monday the 19th. I've got a community services or county services area meeting in Rancho Calaveras that I have to attend, so Marita, you are the...
I'll let you know.
Okay.
I have to go to the airport, but I'm not sure what time. That
Okay.
goes at 6:30?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think that those meetings are at 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see
Okay.
what time I have to be at the airport.
Okay, then that takes care of that Monday of next week, but on this week, there's a, let's see, Pine Grove, just bear with me while I speed read here. Actually, I think I'm just going to be going to the fair on Sunday. Isn't it, there's like a dinner, what was it, that, did you get a notification on the dinner?
Evening
The
of the
14th?
14th.
Okay, all right. I'd like to go to that, but I just want to, for the record, I'd like to mention that we will be having another meeting of the Copperopolis Community Plan Advisory Committee on the evening of the 22nd, Thursday the 22nd. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Russ. Supervisor Callaway.
Russ, I understand we have a meeting with the CCWD board on the 14th. Mona emailed all of us. I didn't know about it.
Committee or the...
That is correct. I stand corrected. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in the CCWD chambers, there will be a joint water committee meeting.
With the Board of Supervisors.
Mhm.
I didn't know about it till Mona emailed us. So I will do that. I'll also be at Frog Jump volunteering at whatever booths. Supposed to be volunteering at.
Whatever didn't get a booth this year.
Whatever didn't.
No.
Including for the Solid Waste Task Force and twice for the Feeney Park. I was listening to the radio on the way down, and they were talking about the swearing in today of the new Speaker of the Assembly. And, of course, the governor comes out with his revised next week. But she made a very interesting comment. They asked how she saw it, because that's the big issue, the fight's already on. And she said, what people say behind closed doors is different than what they say in public. And I thought, we can't do that. As boards of supervisors, we discuss the whole thing in the public arena. We do not have closed meetings about this issue, and yet the state does. The rules don't match, they don't go.
And the state made the rules for us.
And the state made the rules for us, that's right. Anyway. Oh, and just as an aside, Steve and I were at the child support meeting last week, and so far, out of their $2.8 million budget for 08 proposed, 54,500 is being cut, and that's just the start.
And that's after 5 years of a flatline budget.
After 5 years, so.
0 increases for 5 years, and now.
And the
it's up.
same with Area 12 Agency on Aging, and so we know it's going to happen to our most vulnerable populations too. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
Mr. Claudino.
I'm waiting for Marita, she usually remembers something after.
I'll remember. Oh, wait.
I'll be at the CCWD meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock as well. And I'll be at the fair on Friday working in the solid waste task force booth.
You are?
Yes, I am.
You go, Claudito. Great.
I am going. I'm going Saturday.
Oh, I'm doing Thursday.
I know. Check.
Oh, that's why you quit Friday, huh?
As for me, I'll be tonight at the CHIPS board meeting, tomorrow at the CCWD joint board meeting, joint water committee meeting. I would love to join everybody for the dinner on the 14th, but I am at the Railroad Flat Community Hall for another scintillating, adrenaline-ridden debate with in the candidates forum. And then on Friday, I have another Sierra Conservancy conference call finalizing grant guidelines, which went very well for small counties. We actually did make a lot of progress, and this will be finalizing it prior to the Conservancy board meeting in early June. On Monday, I believe, and I wanted to check with Marie to make sure that my information is correct, that the Area 12 Agency on Aging is holding a meeting at the Veterans Memorial Hall in West Point. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'd call them.
I'm pretty sure that's actually happening.
Is that their outreach meeting?
Yeah, it's their outreach meeting for this month. And then at 1 o'clock the same day on Monday, we have an economic summit planning committee, which is making progress, and the summit is anticipated to be, and I should say confirmed to be, at Bret Harte High School on July, make sure I got the dates right, July 11th and 12th. So there's 2 days economic summit. There will be at least, it looks like, 9 tracks, different kinds of things relating to different industries. There will be tourism, there will be recreation, the infrastructure discussions will also be a track, including water and sewer. These are proposals at this point, but they'll be finalized. There are many different other aspects: natural resources, retail, large and small, many different pieces of our economy will be in breakout sessions where industries can get together and talk about their concerns and needs. This also, by the way, you'll be glad to know, includes building and housing as part of it. We're very excited about the prospect of bringing all different interested parties about the economy and the future of Calaveras County together in one room for plenary sessions and inspiration, as well as specific hard work that would lead to action. And that's the theme of this, is not just study, but actually getting some things done. So that planning process is well underway. There will be agendas and press release on it after the next meeting, which is, again, on this coming Monday. That's my report, and we'll go to administration.
I'll defer to county council.
Here. To you, Carol. All right, this concludes our Board of Supervisors meeting and the public aspect. We will move to closed session in 5 minutes.